You sit at a long table lit only by flickering blue holograms. Countless faces stare back, bankers, warlords, industrialists, each cloaked in shadows of ambition and greed. You think you've joined a movement of independence, a revolution against corruption, but what you don't know is that every word, every decision, every secret deal is being scripted by a single hand, and that hand does not belong to you. That's why it really sucked to be a separatist leader. So sit back, grab a snack, and let your imagination drift across the stars. And remember, if you enjoy this journey, subscribe, because the story of the galaxy is far from over. You stand at the edge of a balcony overlooking a world drenched in firelight. The sky burns with the glow of distant engines, their trails carving scars of orange across the black canvas of night. A speech echoes behind you, amplified across the plaza, the voice of a man promising liberation. His words fall like heavy rain, each syllable dripping with conviction, each phrase striking the crowd like a hammer against steel. Independence, he says. Justice, he cries. Freedom, he promises. The crowd roars, a tidal wave of cheers and chants, but you do not cheer. Not yet. You only watch. You only listen. And though the voices around you rise in euphoria, you feel something beneath the thunder. Something faint, something colder, a whisper beneath the storm. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over you. The chants blend into one long, unbroken note, a drone that vibrates through your chest, like a war drum struck in slow motion. And for a fleeting instant, you imagine this is what hope sounds like. The hope of millions who believe their chains will finally be broken. The hope of worlds forgotten, their cries ignored by the Republic's Senate chambers, their resources bled dry in the name of galactic order. You want to believe it. You want to let the fire ignite in your own chest. You want to lift your hand and roar with the rest of them. But deep inside, there is doubt, because you've heard promises before. The Republic promised protection, but your people starved. The Republic promised fairness, but your worlds were buried under taxes and trade restrictions that made survival a daily war. The Republic promised peace, but you've seen their clone soldiers patrol streets with blasters in hand, helmets gleaming like the eyes of predators. They do not look like peacekeepers, they look like jailers. And now you stand here, the promise of freedom swirling around you like incense smoke, and still you wonder if it is just another mask hiding another chain. The voice behind you rises to its crescendo. Count Dooku, tall, regal, his words woven with elegance and steel. He speaks of corruption, of decay, of rot seeping through the very bones of the Republic. He tells the crowd that the galaxy deserves better, that the Separatist cause is not rebellion, but salvation. You watch him extend a hand, not to you, not to the council, but to the people. Always the people. And for a moment, even you are caught in the orbit of his gravity. His voice doesn't just speak, it commands. His eyes don't just look, they pierce. You feel like he is staring directly at you, through you, pulling your doubt into the open and replacing it with something else. Something dangerous. Hope. It feels intoxicating. The crowd surges, chanting his name, their voices a river carrying you downstream, whether you choose to move or not. You can almost taste the fire in the air, the metallic tang of adrenaline mixing with the smoke of torches and banners waving in the night. It's thick enough to choke you, yet you breathe it in anyway, like a man who has been starving too long. You look at the faces around you, men and women worn by years of struggle, now lit with the light of belief. Their eyes shine, and you realize how powerful belief truly is. It can make starving men march. It can make broken systems rise again. It can turn fear into courage. And yet, deep in the marrow of your bones, something whispers. It tells you this isn't salvation. It tells you this isn't freedom. It tells you that behind the veil of speeches and banners, something vast and unseen waits. Like a predator just beyond the firelight. You can almost hear it breathing, and though you cannot name it, you feel its presence as surely as you feel the stone railing beneath your fingers. Still, you stay, because what choice do you have? The Republic left you nothing but scraps. Your voice in their Senate was a whisper drowned by the roar of the core worlds. When your people begged for fairness, for trade routes to be restored, they were told to wait, to be patient, to trust in a system designed to forget them. You've tasted that betrayal, and it burned worse than fire. And now here stands Dooku, offering not patience, but power. Offering not compromise, but a clean break, a revolution painted in words of silver and fire. You tell yourself you don't have to trust him fully. You tell yourself you can keep one foot in doubt, but you already know the truth. To stand here is to choose. To stand here is to step onto the path. The drums beat, the crowd roars. You step forward, and with the others you raise your hand. For the first time, you let your voice join theirs. "Freedom!" you shout, though the word feels strange in your mouth, like a blade too sharp to wield. The sound tears out of your throat, carried into the night sky, swallowed by the smoke and the stars. And in that moment, something changes. You feel it. It's subtle, like the flicker of a shadow just outside the corner of your eye. The energy in the air shifts, bending around you, pressing against you. It's as if the galaxy itself has turned its gaze upon this plaza, upon this crowd, upon you. And in the depths of that gaze, you sense something smiling. Not a kind smile, not the smile of liberation, but the smile of a puppeteer watching strings tight. 10. You tell yourself you're imagining it, that the unease in your stomach is nothing more than nerves, that the whispers in the shadows are just tricks of a restless mind. But when you look back at Dooku, standing tall above all, his face half lit by torchlight, half drowned in shadow, you wonder if perhaps he hears the same whispers too. And the way his eyes gleam, cold, sharp, deliberate, you suspect he not only hears them, he welcomes them. The promise of freedom feels intoxicating, but even the sweetest poison begins with a pleasant taste. You step down from the balcony, the speech still echoing in your ears, your hands still tingling from the salute you gave. The streets are alive with celebration. Music, laughter, voices carried through the air like sparks caught in the wind. Yet beneath it, you feel something else. Rumors of war, armies being built in secret, droids assembled in endless ranks, ships launched in the dark with no names, no flags, only orders. You hear these whispers and think of them as defense, protection, insurance against the Republic's wrath. But deep down, you know better. Because war does not wait at the end of this road. War is the road. You walk through the crowd, torches lighting your way, faces brushing past you like waves in an ocean, each one filled with hope, each one blind to the shadow above them. You wonder if you are blind too. You wonder if you've already sold your soul and just haven't signed the paper yet. The night is loud with joy, but your thoughts are quiet, heavy, and as you reach the edge of the plaza, as the music fades behind you, you hear it again. The whisper, this time, clearer. You were never meant to be free. You freeze, your chest tightening. You glance around, searching the faces, the alleys, the rooftops, but there is nothing. Just firelight, just stars, just smoke carried on the wind. You shake your head, trying to bury the unease, trying to tell yourself it was nothing, but the words cling to you like ash, searing themselves into the back of your mind. And you know, deep down, you've already taken the first step into a labyrinth you will never escape. That's when the first banner drops, unfurling over the plaza, the crest of the Separatist alliance, bold and defiant, lit by flames. The crowd erupts in thunder. Your heart pounds with them, even as the whisper lingers. You stare up at the crest, and though you try to see freedom in its lines, you cannot help but see a cage with gilded bars. And you wonder, not for the last time, if you've just traded one master for another. The drums beat louder, the chants shake the ground, the torches blaze against the night, and in the firelight of the promise you've accepted, you do not notice how long the shadows have grown. Not yet, but soon. You hear the chant of the crowd fade as if swallowed by silence, and for the briefest second, you swear you see a silhouette standing in the firelight, cloaked and watching. Not Dooku, not any leader you know, something else. And though you blink and it's gone, the unease remains. That's when you realize, the promise of freedom always comes with a price. The marble floors of Raxus shine beneath your boots like liquid glass, polished so smooth they reflect the ceiling lights in long white streaks, like frozen lightning trapped beneath stone. The air is heavy with incense and the metallic tang of recycled air, tinged faintly with oil from the endless droid foundries just beyond the city walls. Every step you take echoes in the vast chamber, swallowed quickly by the tide of voices that roll like thunder from deeper within the hall. The sound doesn't comfort you. It doesn't inspire you. It shakes you, unsettles you, reverberates through your chest like the growl of something caged and restless. You pass through tall columns carved with old Raxian inscriptions, each one etched with symbols of peace, of prosperity, of unity. They stand like monuments to a time the galaxy has already forgotten. But the irony is not lost on you. These halls, once built for harmony, now carry whispers of war. You feel the irony under your skin, crawling like static. And as you step closer to the heart of the gathering, you hear it, the speeches rising and falling, breaking like waves against cliffs of marble. The council chamber is vast, domed and circular, lined with tier upon tier of platforms. The banners of the Confederacy hang high above, their insignias painted bold against crimson cloth, swaying slightly in the artificial breeze of hidden vents. At the center of it all, the dais gleams with cold light, where leaders stand in rotation, voices amplified and projected across the chamber. You stop in the shadows at the edge, just for a moment, letting your eyes adjust to the sheer spectacle. The air trembles with words. Grand declarations, passionate speeches, promises of liberation repeated again and again like mantras, each one louder than the last, desperate to be believed. The words crash over you like thunder, but beneath them, you notice something else. A silence that doesn't belong. A silence hiding behind every speech, every outburst of applause. A silence in the eyes of those who speak. You study them closely. The leaders of the banking clan, draped in silks woven with credits thicker than the thread. The Trade Federation delegates, their robes hiding the sweat of men who have sold and bartered lives like wares on a market stall. The Techno Union representatives, their bodies humming faintly with the vibration of cybernetics, eyes unblinking, voices sharp and calculated. They stand tall, voices strong, but when you look closer, when you watch the flicker of their gaze, when you notice the twitch of their hands, there it is, fear. It hides behind their speeches, concealed behind rehearsed bravado, but it's there, quivering beneath their words like a string pulled too tight. Fear of the Republic's armies, fear of the Jedi, fear of each other, fear of what lies at the end of the road they've chosen. They may declare themselves free, but they carry themselves like prisoners rehearsing the language of liberty without ever tasting it. You slip into the chamber fully now, your footsteps nearly drowned by the swell of voices. The smell of sweat and incense mixes into something sour, cloying, heavy in your throat. The counselor's words rattle in your ears, but you cannot stop hearing the dissonance, the way the voices don't align with the eyes, the way the promises don't align with the silence that follows. You try to drown the doubt, to let the speeches carry you like a current, but currents are dangerous things. They don't carry you to safety, they pull you into deeper waters. Count Dooku rises then. The chamber falls still like a beast holding its breath. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't even raise his hand. His presence is enough. The lines of his cloak cut through the chamber like a blade, the light catching the silver of his hair, his eyes glowing faintly beneath the high arch of his brow. His voice emerges low, resonant, carrying weight without volume. And just like that, the room bends to him. He speaks of corruption in the Republic, of senators fattened on greed while outer rim worlds wither. He speaks of clones bred for obedience, soldiers born without choice, and how the Jedi, once noble guardians, now lead armies as generals, enforcing chains under the guise of peace. His voice is silk, wrapping around you, pressing against your mind until you feel it echoing within your chest. Every word resonates with the ache you've carried for years. Every phrase stirs the anger you've buried. And for a moment, you feel the tide turning. You feel yourself believing. But then you look again at the faces around you. The leaders applaud, they nod, they thump their hands on the railings. But their eyes tell another story. The moon banker who smiles with too many teeth, already calculating interest rates for the war. The Neimoidian delegate who nods solemnly, but whose fingers twitch nervously as though counting profits. The Skakoan of the Techno Union, who doesn't even blink, whose gaze is as cold and mechanical as the droids they mass-produce. You see the fractures, the greed, the fear, and you wonder if this chamber is truly a council, or a marketplace where war is the only currency. The sound of Dooku's voice presses harder. He raises his hand, and the chamber erupts in thunder. Chants, cheers, the echo of fists striking stone. The air shakes with it. The floor vibrates beneath your boots. And yet, even here, even now, you hear something else. There's the whisper. It's faint, almost lost in the storm, but you catch it. Not leaders. Pawns. Your chest tightens. You look for the voice, but there's no one there. just the endless sea of leaders, their voices rising, their hands raised high. You tell yourself it's nothing, a trick of your mind, an echo of doubt. But when you glance back at Dooku, his gaze sweeps across the chamber, sharp and knowing, and for a heartbeat you wonder if he heard it too, if perhaps the whisper was not in your mind alone. The gathering stretches on, speech after speech, promise after promise. The words start to blur together, the chamber a storm of voices repeating the same anthem in different tones. Independence, sovereignty, liberty. But every repetition makes it feel thinner, stretched too far, like a thread about to snap. And with every word, you feel that hidden silence growing louder, pressing in from the edges of the chamber, reminding you of something you already know but cannot admit. This is not a council of freedom. This is a council of fear wearing freedom's mask. When the final speech ends, the chamber stands united, at least in performance. The leaders raise their hands, their voices blending in one thunderous chant that rattles the very dome above you. The sound swallows everything, shakes everything, blinds everything, and for a moment, you stand among them, swept in the tide of voices, the promise of a galaxy reborn. The banners above you sway, casting shadows across your face, shadows that stretch longer and darker with each flicker of light. But as the sound crescendos, as the air quakes with the force of their unity, you feel the whisper again, stronger this time, clearer. You were never meant to lead. You draw in a sharp breath, heart pounding. The chamber feels smaller suddenly, the air too thick, the voices too loud. You try to shake the words, but they cling to you, wrap around you, burn into your skin. You glance back at the leaders, at Dooku standing tall above them, at the banners swaying in the artificial breeze, and all you can think is how every one of them looks less like a liberator, and more like a prisoner convincing themselves the cage is freedom. The chant rises one final time, shaking the walls, rattling the floor, deafening your thoughts. You raise your hand with the others, but your fingers tremble. You let the word escape your lips, but it feels hollow. And as the chamber roars, you feel the shadow of something vast and unseen pressing down, waiting, watching, patient. And in the silence after the thunder fades, you realize the most dangerous prison is not built of stone or steel. It is built of hope, twisted into chains. You look up at Dooku one last time, his eyes sharp beneath the glow of the banners, and you feel it in your bones. He already knows. That's when the chamber doors slam shut behind you with a weight that makes your stomach sink, as though the galaxy itself just locked you inside. The chamber feels colder now. You notice it first in your fingertips, the way the polished surface of the table chills your skin, as though the stone itself is leaching warmth. The voices of the counselors echo around you, bouncing against the walls, sharp and jagged, yet none of them feel like their own. Every word, every vote, every proclamation, each one bends subtly, almost imperceptibly, toward one direction. Not toward the will of the people, not even toward the scattered desires of the Separatist leaders. No, all of it bends toward something unseen, toward something hidden, like a weight on the air, like a shadow draped over the room. You lean back in your chair, eyes scanning the chamber. Dooku presides at the center, as he always does. Tall, regal, calm. His cloak drapes across the floor like spilled ink, and his voice rolls like velvet thunder. When he speaks, the others listen. When he pauses, the others wait. And when he looks into your eyes, you feel it. The pressure, the pull. It's subtle, refined, never overt, yet you know it's there. Something whispers through him, guiding him, shaping him. And though you cannot see the hand pulling the strings, you feel it brushing against your mind, invisible threads binding you to decisions you don't remember choosing. The banking clan discusses loans, interest rates, how best to fund the war machine. You hear their words, but behind them, you sense the echo of approval, the faint vibration of a presence beyond the council chamber. The Techno Union argues about production schedules, about factories running endlessly in the outer rim, droids built in millions, billions. Their voices sound mechanical, rehearsed, as if dictated. And through it all, Dooku's hand guides the current, his words placed like stones in a river, shaping the flow until it bends perfectly to his design. But even Dooku's will does not feel absolute. His pauses are too deliberate, his phrasing too precise, as though he too is following a script written in the shadows. And then you feel it, the whisper. It's not sound. Not exactly. It brushes the edges of your mind, a low vibration that coils behind your thoughts. The words are indistinct, but the meaning slides into you nonetheless. Guide them, bind them. They are yours. You blink, your breath catching, and you glance around the chamber, searching for the source, but no one reacts. No one else seems to hear it. The others continue, their voices weaving into the larger tapestry of false debate. And then Dooku speaks again, his tone calm, decisive, final, and in the cadence of his words, you hear it. The echo, the whisper speaking through him. Sidious. The name hangs unspoken in your mind, poisonous and heavy. You've heard it in fragments, in rumors whispered in dim corridors, never confirmed, always denied. But now you feel it, here. His presence woven through the walls like mold through old stone, unseen but spreading, growing, consuming. He does not sit at the table. He does not raise his hand. And yet every decision bends toward him, as if gravity itself answers to his command. You try to speak. You try to raise your voice, to suggest caution, to question the scale of production, the direction of the war. But when the words leave your mouth, they feel thin, fragile. You hear yourself echo in the chamber, but no one turns their head. No one listens. Dooku does not even glance at you. It's as though your voice dissolves in the air, swallowed by something vast and unseen before it can even reach another's ears. And in that silence, you feel the threads tighten. You are an echo. The realization twists in your stomach. You sit among leaders, supposed leaders of the Confederacy, but each of you is only a strand caught in the same web. A web that stretches far beyond this chamber, far beyond Raxus, spun by hands you will never see, never touch, yet which hold you tighter than chains of iron. You clench your fists, nails biting into your palms, trying to feel something real, something yours. But even the sting of pain feels borrowed. Dooku rises again, and the chamber falls still. He does not shout. He does not need to. His voice is calm, patient, deliberate. He speaks of strategy, of aligning resources, of pressing the Republic where it is weakest. His words drip with certainty, each one weighted perfectly, as though carved from stone long before this moment. You hear conviction in him, yes, but conviction too precise, too rehearsed, too artificial. And then you hear it again, the whisper beneath the words. A second voice, hidden in his cadence, darker, colder, commanding. Do not question, only obey. Your breath catches. The words slide into your mind, oily and thick, coiling around your thoughts until they almost sound like your own. You shake your head slightly, trying to dispel it, trying to remember the sound of your own voice, your own mind. But the chamber is loud, the voices crash around you, and you feel yourself slipping. This is the spider's web. Each thread glistens with promise, with power, with freedom. Each one leads you deeper, until you cannot tell where your choices end and where the spider's design begins. You think of your people back home, the ones who cheered when you left, who believed you would fight for them. Did you ever carry their voices here? Or were they drowned before you ever stepped into this chamber? The session stretches on, but you stop hearing words. You only hear the rhythm, the cadence of the a whisper woven through everything. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the chamber dissolves. You see not the polished stone and marble but threads, endless threads of light stretching in every direction, binding every leader, every counselor, every world. They quiver and tremble, each one vibrating with the same pulse, the same dark heartbeat. And at the center, far away, hidden in shadow, you see it. A shape, a hand, fingers curling, tugging. You cannot see the face, but you feel the eyes, ancient and hungry, staring through the web directly into you. You gasp, your eyes snapping open, sweat cold against your skin. The chamber is as it was, the council deep in debate, Dooku watching calmly from the dais. But the image lingers in your mind, carved like fire into stone. You know what you saw. You know who it is. The spider in the web. Sidious. You want to run. You want to stand, to tear the threads away, to shout to the chamber that you are all prisoners dancing to an unseen tune. But when you open your mouth, nothing comes. Your throat locks, your chest tightens, the words die before they are born, and across the chamber Dooku's gaze drifts toward you, settling with calm precision. His eyes narrow slightly, and in that moment, you know, he felt your doubt. He saw the threads straining, and with a faint smile, he tightens them again. The chamber erupts in applause, voices rising in unity, but none of it feels like freedom. None of it feels like choice. It feels like obedience. Perfect, seamless obedience. You clap your hands with the others, but the sound feels hollow, like wood striking stone. Your palms sting, but it doesn't make you real. You are a shadow clapping among shadows, and as you lower your hands, the whisper comes one final time, curling behind your ear like breath on your skin. You are mine. The words dig deep, burning cold into your chest. You look around, desperate for someone else to hear it, someone else to flinch, but the others smile, nod, applaud, prisoners convincing themselves they are free. And you realize, with a weight that crushes your lungs, that you are not only caught in the spider's web, you are already part of the feast. The session adjourns, the chamber slowly emptying, but you linger, your body heavy, your mind tangled in threads you cannot cut. The banners above sway softly, crimson shadows painting the floor. The torches flicker, and for a heartbeat you see it again, those threads stretching out of the chamber, out of Raxus, out into the stars, each one quivering, each one leading back to the same darkness. And as the doors close, sealing the chamber in silence, you know this is only the beginning. The spider has only just begun to pull. The table stretches before you like a wound carved into the heart of the chamber, a great oval of polished obsidian reflecting torchlight and fractured glimmers. The seats around it are filled, each one occupied by a figure draped in wealth, power, or machinery. The air feels thick, heavy with the scent of incense masking oil and smoke, and you realize this is not a council of freedom fighters. It is a marketplace dressed as a revolution. You take your seat, the cold surface pressing against your palms, and when you lift your eyes, the truth of your companion stares back at you. The banking clan sits opposite, their elongated features pale and sharp, their robes embroidered with wealth you could never imagine. Their voices drip with calculation, each syllable heavy with the weight of numbers, of debts, of interest compounded into shackles. To your left, the Techno Union representatives hum with faint mechanical vibrations, their bodies more machine than flesh, their gazes blank, unblinking, as though human expression had long ago been traded for efficiency. To your right, the Trade Federation's delegates lean forward, their smiles stretched thin, their words slick with honey-hiding blades. Each of them radiates power. Each of them commands armies of droids, fleets of ships, vaults overflowing with wealth, and each of them makes your stomach twist. You want to believe you are seated among allies, that this table is a circle of equals bound together by shared purpose, by righteous defiance against a corrupt republic. But the longer you sit, the more you see the cracks. Their eyes do not gleam with the fire of freedom. They glint with greed, cold and sharp like knives catching the light. Their hands do not rest still on the table. They twitch, they fidget, they drum rhythms of calculation, of deals yet to be made, of betrayals yet to be decided. You realize their minds are not here, not with the cause, not with the dream of liberty. Their minds are in ledgers, in vaults, in markets. Their minds are already counting how much war can buy. A voice cuts through the chamber, one of the moon bankers. His words are smooth, practiced, dripping with the kind of confidence only numbers can bring. He speaks not of freedom, not of justice, but of loans, of funding, of the cost of armies and ships. He speaks of interest rates as though they are chains, invisible but unbreakable, to be draped across entire star systems. The others nod, some with approval, others with resignation. You sit in silence, the numbers washing over you like cold water. This is not the language of revolution. This is the language of enslavement, dressed in the robes of freedom. The Trade Federation speaks next, their voices slick, carrying the weight of fleets that have blockaded worlds and starved them into submission. They speak of supply lines, of tariffs, of profits disguised as logistics. They promise support, but you can hear the price hidden beneath the words. Nothing is free here, not even freedom. Especially not freedom. The Techno Union hums with mechanical certainty, their words sharp and efficient. They speak of factories running without end, of droids built by the millions, of ships assembled in dark hangars far from the Republic's gaze. Their voices lack emotion, but not purpose. To them, war is not tragedy. War is production. War is perfection. War is profit. You listen, your stomach heavy, your throat dry. You wonder how many of them actually believe in liberty. How many of them truly see the Republic as rotten, deserving of rebellion? And how many of them are simply here because war is the greatest marketplace the galaxy has ever known? You glance around the table again, searching for conviction in their eyes, but all you find are smiles. Smiles sharp enough to cut. Smiles that hide daggers behind every word. Dooku presides at the head of the table, his presence steady, his voice calm when he finally speaks. He listens to them all, nods at their promises, acknowledges their demands. His words carry authority, but you notice how he never rebukes them, never challenges their motives. He does not care that they hunger for profit more than freedom. He only cares that their hunger keeps them here, bound to the table, bound to the war. And when he speaks of unity, of shared purpose, his words feel less like belief and more like command. You try to add your voice, to remind them of the people, of the countless worlds suffering beneath Republic taxation and neglect. You try to speak of why this movement began, of the promise of liberty. But when your words fall into the chamber, they land like stones in a void. The bankers glance at you, their expressions bored, calculating. The Trade Federation smiles politely, their eyes already elsewhere. The Techno Union stares without blinking, as though your words are irrelevant noise. Even Dooku, when his gaze turns to you, gives nothing more than a small nod before steering the conversation back to credits, fleets, factories. Your voice fades into silence, drowned by the hum of deals and numbers. That's when you realize the truth. This seat you've been given is not a throne, it's a leash. The table is not a council of equals, it is a stage. And you, along with the others, are actors reading lines written for you long before you sat here. You think of the spider's web, of the invisible threads that pulled you here, and you see them now more clearly than ever. Each leader, each delegate, each faction, they all think they are free, powerful, in control, but they are all caught in the same web. Every promise of wealth, every deal signed, every fleet launched, it all feeds the same shadow. The voices rise again, arguing now, sharper, more heated. The banking clan pushes for higher interest. The Trade Federation demands guarantees. The Techno Union insists on production schedules. They argue like predators, circling the same carcass, snapping and growling, each hungry to tear away the largest piece. The sound fills the chamber, a cacophony of greed and fear. And as you sit among them, you feel your chest tighten, your skin crawl. This is not unity. This is not freedom. This is hunger dressed as revolution. You glance at Dooku again. His face remains calm, unreadable, his hands folded before him. He does not interrupt. He does not calm them. He lets them snarl and claw at each other, his eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. And you realize this too is part of the web. Their greed is not a flaw. It is the design. Their hunger keeps them bound. Their daggers ensure they will never unite fully, never turn their blades outward at the one who binds them. They think they are leaders, but they are prisoners of their own desires. And so are you. The argument builds to a peak, voices shouting, hands slamming against the table. The air vibrates with fury and desperation. You open your mouth to speak, to shout, to remind them of the promise of freedom that brought you here. But before the words can form, the chamber falls silent. Dooku has risen. He does not raise his hand, he does not shout, he simply stands, and the silence cascades across the room like a wave. His voice, when it comes, is calm, steady, commanding. He speaks of unity, of destiny, of the great tide of history turning in their favor. He tells them that each of their sacrifices, each of their profits, each of their fleets will serve a greater purpose. His words slide into you like silk, wrapping around your doubt, pressing it down, smothering it. And though you want to resist, you feel yourself nodding with the others, your chest tightening with something dangerously close to belief. But then you feel it, the whisper. It coils behind his words, deeper, darker. Not their table, mine. The voice is not Dooku's. It is older, sharper, hungrier. And in that moment you know the truth. This is not your seat. It never was. This table does not belong to the banking clan. It does not belong to the Trade Federation. It does not belong to Dooku. It belongs to the shadow behind him, the spider, the master, Sidious. You lower your gaze, your hands trembling beneath the table, your voice locked in your throat. The others smile again, their daggers hidden once more, their deals resumed. They cannot see it, or perhaps they refuse to, but you feel it in your bones, cold and certain. You are not a leader. You are not free. You are another piece in a game played by hands you will never see. And as the session ends, as the council disperses, you rise from your seat and glance one last time at the table. Its polished surface gleams with the reflection of banners swaying above, crimson shadows painted across black stone. For a moment you imagine the surface crawling with threads, invisible strands binding every chair, every hand, every voice. You almost see them, almost. You step back, the weight of the chamber pressing down on you, and just before the doors close, the whisper comes again, sharp as a blade sliding across your ear. You will pay the price. You freeze, heart hammering, but the doors slam shut, leaving you in silence. And in that silence, you realize the most dangerous seat at the table is the one you just took. The sky above the factory world is not a sky at all. It is a ceiling of smoke, thick and choking, pressed so low it feels as though the heavens themselves have collapsed. You stand at the edge of the foundries, the heat rolling over you in waves, the air so dense with burning oil and metal that every breath sears your lungs. The ground trembles beneath your boots, a steady rhythm, a drumbeat of machinery, of assembly lines that never stop, never sleep. Before you stretches an endless procession of droids, row upon row, their gleaming frames catching the firelight as they march in perfect unison. Their eyes glow cold and unblinking, and in their hollow gaze you see the truth that you have tried so hard to ignore. This is not a revolution. This is an industry. This is not liberty. This is production. The scream of the factories fills your ears, a sound so constant it becomes a kind of silence, a backdrop to every thought. You watch sparks cascade from the towers, each one a fragment of a star torn from the sky and ground into nothing. You taste ash on your tongue, bitter and sharp, clinging to your teeth. Your clothes carry the stench of smoke, of molten steel, of oil spilled and burned. The firelight paints your skin, makes your shadow stretch long and jagged across the ground. And in that shadow you see yourself reflected back as something monstrous, half leader, half prisoner, consumed by the machine you once thought would set you free. You remember the speeches on Raxus, the words of liberty that stirred the crowd into thunder. You remember the promise that this war would be fought for justice, that it would be the people's rebellion against the corruption of the Republic. But here, standing before this inferno, you know better. This is not for the people. This is not for freedom. This is for the ones who own the factories, for the banking clan, for the Techno Union, for the Trade Federation. Every droid that marches out of these gates is not a soldier of independence. It is an invoice, paid for in blood, sold for profit, stamped with the insignia of a cause that has already betrayed itself. The overseers walk the catwalks above, their robes billowing in the heat, their eyes calculating. They do not look at the droids as soldiers. They look at them as numbers, as assets, as merchandise ready to be delivered. Their data pads glow with figures, with tallies, with profits counted in the millions. Their voices carry above the roar, calm, detached, as though they stand in a marketplace instead of a furnace. You hear them argue about quotas, about deadlines, about the need to increase output by another 10%, and you realize none of them speak of liberty, none of them speak of justice, none of them even speak of victory. They only speak of production. You turn away, your stomach tight, your throat dry. You try to remind yourself of why you came here, of why you joined the Separatists. You tell yourself this is necessary, that armies must be built, that war requires sacrifice. You try to believe that these factories are simply a means to an end, but the whispers in the smoke tell you otherwise, the whispers that curl through the furnaces, that slide into your ears between the scream of gears. Not soldiers, tools. You close your eyes, your hands trembling at your sides. You know the voice. You have heard it before, beneath the speeches, behind Dooku's velvet tone. The whisper of Sidious, the spider in the web, binding every thread, every leader, every choice. You tell yourself you can resist it, that you can hold on to your own thoughts. But as you open your eyes and see the endless tide of droids marching, the whisper becomes harder to deny. These soldiers are not yours. They are not the Confederacy's. They belong to him. The ground shakes again, a new wave of droids emerging from the gates, their steps perfectly synchronized. The sound is hypnotic, a single heartbeat stretched across thousands of bodies. You watch their heads turn in unison, their weapons held with mechanical precision, their movements devoid of hesitation or fear. And you wonder what chance the Republic's clones truly have against this tide. You wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, the Separatists could win. But then the thought rots in your chest, because victory here is not freedom. Victory here only feeds the machine. A massive transport descends from the smoke above, its engines roaring, kicking up ash and fire as it lowers to the ground. The doors open with a hiss, and overseers direct the droids inside. Another shipment. Another army sent to die in the name of prophets and shadows. You feel the heat on your face, the vibration of engines in your bones. The sight is overwhelming, endless, infinite, and you realize that this war has no end. No matter what the speeches promise, as long as the factories scream, the war will live. You walk deeper into the complex, past furnaces that roar with molten steel, past conveyor belts that rattle with endless parts, past vats of oil bubbling like black seas. Workers, most of them slaves in all but name, move like ghosts through the heat, their faces hidden beneath masks, their bodies bent and broken by labor. Their eyes glance at you, hollow, lifeless, resigned. You want to look away, but you cannot. These are the ones who pay the price for every droid that marches, for every ship that launches. They do not fight for liberty. They build for profit. Their freedom was traded long ago. The sound of machinery swells, louder now, until it drowns out your thoughts. You press your hands to your ears, but it doesn't help. The noise is not just sound. It is everywhere, in your bones, in your chest, in your skull. You stumble, your vision blurring in the heat, and then, through the haze, you see it, the web, not with your eyes, not with your ears, but with something deeper, something you cannot name. Threads stretch across the factory floor, glowing faintly, binding every worker, every overseer, every droid. They vibrate with each scream of machinery, each step of the endless march, and at the center, hidden beyond the smoke, beyond the fire, you feel the presence again. Sidious, the spider, the architect. You feel his laughter ripple through the threads, low and cold, vibrating against your bones, and the whisper comes again. This is not your war. Your knees almost buckle. You grip the railing, your knuckles white, your breath shallow. You want to shout, to deny it, to tear the threads apart, but the sight before you crushes the denial before it can form. The factories do not lie. The droids do not lie. The overseers do not lie. This revolution was never about liberty. It was always about control, about who owns the factories, about who profits from the war, about who pulls the strings. You stagger back, the heat pressing against your skin, the whispers burning in your ears. The workers continue, the overseers continue, the droids continue. Nothing stops, nothing changes. You realize you could collapse here, scream here, tear your throat raw, and still the factory would go on. The machine would go on. The war would go on, because it does not need you. It never needed you. And yet you remain. Because where else can you go? You walk again, your steps heavy, your throat raw, until you reach the outer gates. Beyond them, the horizon burns red, the sky swallowed in smoke. You see transports rising, fleets assembling, weapons gleaming in the firelight. You see a galaxy preparing for slaughter, not for freedom. And you wonder if anyone else sees it, if anyone else notices how the dream has rotted, how the promise has curdled, or if they are all too drunk on credits, too intoxicated by profits to care. You think of the banking clan, their eyes shining with numbers. You think of the Trade Federation, their smiles hiding knives. You think of the Techno Union, their voices mechanical, soulless. And you think of Dooku, calm, regal, commanding. You wonder if he believes in the cause, or if he too is only another prisoner in the web. You wonder if perhaps he knows. You wonder if perhaps he has always known. The drums of machinery pound again, shaking the ground, rattling your bones. Another wave of droids marches into the smoke, their shadows stretching long against the fire. You watch them disappear, swallowed by the haze, and you realize you are watching the galaxy disappear with them. Not into freedom, not into justice, but into fire. Into war, into chains forged not from steel, but from profit and whispers. And then you hear it. Not a whisper this time. Not faint, not hidden, but clear, sharp, final. You are already mine. The words slice through you, cold and merciless, burning deeper than the smoke, deeper than the heat. You freeze, your breath caught in your chest, your heart pounding. You glance around, searching for the source. But there is nothing, just fire. Just smoke, just the endless march. And in that moment, you know, you were never here to build freedom. You were here to feed the machine. The factory screams again, the ground trembling, the sky burning. And as you step back into the shadows, the truth presses against you like iron chains. This is not a revolution. This is an assembly line, and the machine has only just begun to awaken. The chamber dims as Count Dooku enters, and though no light has changed, the shadows seem to gather around him, drawn like moths to a flame too cold to warm them. You sit among the others, the echoes of machinery still lingering in your ears from the factories you left behind, the stench of smoke clinging to your clothes. Yet here, in this hall, the air smells different, cleaner, perfumed faintly with incense, as if carefully designed to erase the stink of war. And still, when he steps into the center, even the perfume cannot disguise the metallic tang of power that sharpens the room. He does not need to raise his voice. He does not need to lift a hand. The air bends around him. Dooku stands tall, his cloak draped perfectly across his shoulders, every fold deliberate, every gesture calculated. His presence commands silence before he even speaks, as though the room itself waits on his words. And when those words finally arrive, they are soft, low, smooth, velvet wrapping around steel. You lean forward, not because you want to, but because you must. His voice pulls you like gravity. He speaks of the Republic, of its corruption, its decay, its endless bureaucracy choking entire star systems while senators gorge themselves in gilded halls. He paints images with his tone, images you've seen before, images you've lived. Farmers crushed under taxes, merchants starved by tariffs, entire worlds stripped bare in the name of galactic order. His voice makes those images burn anew, fresh wounds opening in your chest, and you cannot help but nod, because it's true. You've seen it, you've bled for it, and in his words, you hear your own suffering reflected back like an echo in the dark. But then, the echo lingers too long, because beneath his words, beneath the cadence of his tone, you feel it again. That second voice, that whisper, older, sharper, hidden in the spaces between syllable says. It slides into your ears like smoke, curling through the chambers of your mind. It does not speak of freedom. It does not speak of justice. It speaks of obedience. Follow, obey, bend. You blink, shaking your head, trying to push it away. But the Count's voice doesn't let you go. His eyes sweep the room, steel gray and sharp as blades. When they land on you, your breath catches. It feels as though he sees straight through you, as though the doubts, the whispers, the fears that gnaw at your chest are laid bare beneath his gaze. And yet, there is no condemnation in his look, only certainty. He looks at you as if he already knows your choices before you make them, as if your path is already written. The others nod, applaud, their voices rising in agreement. Some do so with conviction, others with calculation. But you notice how quickly they all fall silent again when Dooku lifts his hand, how eager they are to let him shape their thoughts, their fears, their desires. You wonder if they even hear themselves anymore, or if they only hear him. You wonder if you are any different. He speaks now of destiny, of the great tide of history that has always swept the galaxy, of how the Republic clings desperately to the past, while the Separatists embody the future. His words are fire, but controlled fire, never wild, never reckless. He burns exactly where he intends. You feel the heat of it in your chest, the temptation to believe, to let yourself be carried by the certainty of his tone. You tell yourself it is conviction, but deep inside, you know it is seduction. You shift in your chair, the weight of his words pressing against you, and you hear your own thoughts mutter back, "Is this a liberator? Or is this another tyrant cloaked in noble lies?" The doubt festers, because you've seen tyrants before. The Republic wears its chains openly, wrapped in law and procedure, disguised as peace. But what if Dooku, is only another mask? What if the silver tongue is not salvation but poison? He paces slowly, each step deliberate, each pause timed to perfection. The chamber listens, breath held, as though he alone decides when they may inhale, and perhaps he does. He tells them that sacrifice is necessary, that victory is assured if they remain united, if they trust in the Confederacy's vision. His words sound noble, they sound righteous, but as they slip into your ears, you feel them tighten around you like ropes. Sacrifice. The word burns. Whose sacrifice? Yours? Your people's? Theirs? Or his? The applause swells again, rattling the chamber, a chorus of belief. But you notice the smiles, too sharp, too rehearsed, the eyes that gleam not with hope, but with greed, the nods that bend too easily, and you realize that they are not following him out of belief. They are following him out of need, out of fear, out of hunger, and perhaps, so are you. You close your eyes, the sound of his voice flooding your skull. It is too smooth, too perfect, too flawless to be only his. You remember the factories, the whispers in the smoke, the endless web stretching into the stars, and you know, his voice is not his alone. It carries another within it, a master hidden behind the curtain, speaking through him, bending you. Dooku's tongue may be silver, but the hand that polishes it is Sidious's. You open your eyes, sweat beading at your brow, your chest tight. You glance around the chamber. The others lean forward, hanging on every word, their faces rapt, their eyes reflecting the torchlight like glass. They don't see it, or maybe they refuse to. They don't hear the second voice, the whisper curled behind Dooku's, and that makes you wonder, why you? Why do you hear it? Why does the darkness slither into your ears when the others hear only fire? You shift again, the chair hard against your back, your palms slick against the cold table. You want to stand, to shout, to strip away the mask and show them the truth. But when you open your mouth, the words die before they form. Your throat locks, your chest constricts, and in the silence of your failure, Dooku's gaze finds you again. His lips curve, not into a smile, not quite, but into something sharper. A look that says he knows, a look that says he has already won. The chamber erupts once more in thunderous applause, voices rising, hands slamming against the table. The sound shakes your bones, rattles your teeth. You clap with them because you must. You cheer because you must. But every strike of your palms feels like chains tightening around your wrists. Every shout burns your throat with lies. And still his voice echoes, velvet and steel, wrapping around you until you almost believe it, until you almost forget the whispers behind it. Almost. The session ends, and the leaders rise. They bow their heads to Dooku, they murmur their praise, their loyalty, their obedience. He accepts it all with the grace of a noble, the composure of a king. But you see it differently now. You see the strings trailing behind him, invisible threads stretching into shadow. He is not the master here. He is only the mouthpiece, the tongue of a voice far darker. You step back, the chamber spinning around you, the scent of incense cloying in your throat. The leaders file out, their robes brushing past, their voices hushed with admiration. You remain, your feet heavy, your chest tight, your mind tangled in whispers. The banners above sway in the artificial breeze, crimson shadows stretching across the floor like blood spilled on stone. You look up at them, and the question gnaws at you. Are you following a liberator, or are you kneeling to a tyrant in disguise? The silence of the chamber presses against you, heavy, suffocating, and then, just as you turn to leave, the whisper comes again. There is no difference. Your breath catches, your heart pounding in your ears. You whirl around, but there is no one, just shadows, just the echo of your doubt, given voice by something far older, far hungrier. And as you step into the corridor, the doors closing behind you, you feel the truth pressing against your bones. You cannot tell where Dooku ends and Sidious begins. And that is the most dangerous lie of all. The night is no longer quiet. It hasn't been for weeks. You wake not to silence, but to the thunder of cannons, the scream of engines cutting through the clouds, the sound of blaster fire rattling in the distance like teeth chattering in the cold. The air tastes of smoke now, always smoke, acrid and bitter, searing your lungs until every breath feels like swallowing ash. Even in your dreams, you cannot escape it. The fire follows you, painting the walls of your sleep red and orange, turning every shadow into the shape of a burning ship. Once, you dreamed of sovereignty. Once, you dreamed of liberty, but now your only dream is survival. You stumble out onto the balcony of the safe house, the night sky above you, alive with fire. Republic cruisers hang in orbit, their hulls glowing as they unleash another wave of turbo-laser fire onto the surface below. The ground shakes beneath your feet, the glass rattles in the window frames, and somewhere in the city, a tower collapses with a roar that drowns out even the cannons. You can taste the dust in the air, gritty against your teeth, bitter on your tongue. The Jedi are here. At first you had dismissed the rumors as propaganda, stories spread by frightened locals desperate to give their suffering a name. But then you saw them yourself, the cloaks cutting through smoke, the blades igniting with a hiss that chilled your bones. Green, blue, sometimes purple, lights burning like fallen stars, carving through ranks of droids as though they were paper. You watched from the safety of a bunker as one of them leapt through the air, a silhouette of calm fury, deflecting blaster bolts with ease, moving faster than your eyes could follow. And in that moment, you understood why the Republic feared nothing, why their soldiers marched with such confidence. because they had gods of war fighting at their side. The clones strike with precision. Air blasters firing in endless rhythm, their armor gleaming even in the smoke. They move like a single organism, each one perfectly synchronized, their voices echoing through comms you can only half hear. They are relentless. They do not stop. They do not hesitate, and you cannot help but wonder what kind of men they are, if they are men at all, or simply weapons given flesh. The Jedi lead them like shepherds guiding wolves, their orders sharp, their presence unshakable. And you are the prey. The first time you stood on a battlefield, you thought your droids could hold them. You thought numbers would be enough. Endless ranks of steel, endless volleys of blaster fire. You thought the sight of 1,000 machines marching in perfect unison would break the Republic's will. But when the Jedi came, all those numbers meant nothing. Your droids fell like stalks of wheat before the harvest. Their blasters fired, but the bolts never reached their targets. Their formations held, but the Jedi tore through them like fire through paper. You remember the sound, metal screeching, parts clattering, the whine of circuitry dying, and you remember the silence after, broken only by the hum of a single lightsaber still glowing in the dark. Now, everywhere you turn, the war burns closer. Cities crumble, fleets vanish, strongholds fall. You receive reports at all hours, each one worse than the last. A fleet destroyed at Salukami, a factory burned on Geonosis, a stronghold lost at Christophsis. The Republic strikes swift, merciless, each blow cutting deeper than the last. You cannot keep up with the names anymore. Too many worlds lost, too many people abandoned. You stopped trying to remember them, because remembering means mourning, and you don't have the strength left to mourn. The people look at you differently now. When you first stood on balconies and promised them freedom, their eyes shone with belief. Now their eyes are hollow, wide with fear, their faces smudged with ash and exhaustion. They don't ask about liberty anymore. They ask about food. They ask about shelter. They ask if they will see tomorrow. You have no answers for them. You have no words that can make their fear vanish. And still you stand, because you must. Even as you feel your own hope rot inside you, you stand. Because if you fall, what is left? You retreat into the war rooms, the holograms glowing blue against your face. Maps of systems, lines of fleets, markers blinking red and yellow as Republic forces press further and further. Generals shout, their voices strained, their hands slamming against tables. Droids relay reports, their monotone voices spilling casualty numbers like they are meaningless digits. You listen, your chest hollow, your throat dry, your hands trembling beneath the table where no one can see. The war does not look like the speeches anymore. It looks like attrition. It looks like desperation. And then you hear it, the whisper, not in your ears, in your bones. This is what they were built for, to bleed you. You close your eyes, your stomach twisting. You know the voice. Sidious, always Sidious, hidden in the smoke, hidden in the war, hidden behind every decision you thought you made yourself. His voice curls into your chest, thick and cold, pressing down until your thoughts blur. You try to ignore it, but you cannot, because when you look at the maps, when you see the endless advance of the Republic, you realize it's true. This war was never meant for victory. It was meant to bleed you. The nights are worse. You wake to fire, to screams, to the smell of burning steel. You stumble into corridors lit by red alarms, droids rushing past you, officers shouting orders. You look out windows and see ships falling from the sky, their hulls burning as they crash into the ground. You cover your ears, but the sound still finds you. Metal tearing, explosions pounding your chest, voices cut off mid-scream. The war follows you into your dreams until you no longer know when you are awake and when you are asleep, and always, always, the Jedi. You see them in flashes, a hooded figure moving through fire, lightsaber cutting arcs of light through the smoke, a calm face, eyes sharp, mouth set in grim silence. You see the way their blades reflect off metal, the way the glow paints their features, the way they move without hesitation, without fear. You tell yourself they are just men, that they bleed like anyone else, but you don't believe it. Not anymore. They are something else, something the galaxy cannot resist, and you wonder how long it will be before their blades reach you. The leaders whisper among themselves now. They avoid saying the word defeat, but you hear it in their tones, in their pauses, in the way their eyes dart toward the doors. They argue over factories, over credits, over who will pay the price for the losses. They do not argue over freedom anymore. No one does. That word has vanished, burned away by fire and blaster bolts. Now the only word that remains is survival. You wonder what survival even means. If you endure, if somehow you outlast the Republic's wrath, what will be left of you? What will be left of your people? What will be left of the promise you once carried in your chest? You feel it now, heavy and cold, like ash filling your lungs. That promise is gone. All that remains is fear. The cannons roar again, the building trembling. Dust falls from the ceiling, coating your skin, clinging to your lips. You taste it, bitter, suffocating. Officers shout for you to retreat to the lower levels, to take shelter. You hesitate, your eyes drawn once more to the window. Outside, the night burns. A cruiser descends, fire spilling from its cannons, its hull glowing in the darkness. And there, below it, you see them again, the Jedi, cutting through your defenses, their blades blazing, their movements unstoppable. You grip the railing, your knuckles white, your chest heaving. And in that moment, you realize you are not watching soldiers. You are watching executioners. The alarms blare louder, the floor shaking violently. You turn away, stumbling into the corridor, your ears ringing, your throat raw. The officers push you forward, the droids surrounding you, their blasters raised. You descend into the depths of the safe house, deeper into the shadows. But the fire follows, the sound follows, the war follows. And no matter how deep you go, you know it will find you. Because the Jedi do not stop. The Republic does not stop. The war does not stop. And you are running out of places to hide. The doors slam shut behind you with the weight of stone, and the chamber fills at once with noise sharp enough to cut flesh. Voices rise, clashing over one another, an unholy symphony of greed, fear, and rage. The polished obsidian table that once gleamed like the surface of still water is now battered by fists, by datapads hurled aside, by the sharp cracks of metal hands striking stone. You lower yourself into your seat, the cold surface pressing against your palms, and you realize there is no unity here. There never was. The Separatist Council is not a council at all. It is a viper's nest. And you are seated in its heart. The air is heavy with the scent of oil, of incense meant to mask it, of sweat clinging to skin beneath layers of silk and steel. The torches flicker against the banners overhead, casting jagged shadows across the walls that stretch and writhe like serpents coiling around the chamber. The sound alone is suffocating, arguments overlapping, threats whispered and shouted alike, the pounding rhythm of fists against the table. Every voice is desperate to be louder than the others. Every word drips with venom. The banking clan stands, their elongated fingers trembling with restrained fury, datapads clutched tight in their hands. They spit figures into the air, credits lost, loans defaulted, interest unpaid. Their voices are sharp, nasal, breaking through the noise with the clarity of sharpened glass. Beside them, the Trade Federation shouts back, their words slick but trembling, their smiles strained into grimaces. They slam their fists against the table, accusing the bankers of exploiting them, of bleeding the Confederacy dry even as the war consumes everything. Their eyes glint with the same hunger you've seen since the first day, but now it is not hidden. Now it burns, bare and violent. The Techno Union drones in mechanical tones, their vocoders rasping, their words precise, cold, merciless. They speak of production schedules, of quotas unmet, of shipments delayed by Republic blockades. Their words are not arguments but threats, delivered with the finality of gears grinding together, and their bodies hum faintly, the sound vibrating through the floor, making the chamber itself feel unstable. Everywhere you turn, allies snarl at one another. They do not speak of liberty, they do not speak of sovereignty, they speak of debts, of betrayal, of whose factories have been bombed, whose fleets have been lost, whose profits have withered in the fire of the Republic's wrath. They speak not like leaders of a cause, but like predators circling the same carcass, each one ready to strike at the other's throat, and in their eyes, you see it clearly now. The Republic is not their greatest enemy, each other is. You shift in your seat, your chest tightening, your palms slick with sweat. You want to speak, to remind them of why they gathered here, to drag their eyes back to the dream that once gave this council its name. But when you open your mouth, your words vanish in the storm. No one listens. No one hears. Your voice is drowned, swallowed whole by the roar of greed and fear. You sit there, your lips moving, your throat straining, and still it feels as though you are screaming into the void. A fist slams against the table hard enough to rattle the glasses of water that still sit untouched. You glance up and see one of the Neimoidians leaning forward, his face twisted into rage, his words hissing like venom. He points across the chamber, accusing the Techno Union of withholding droids, of sabotaging shipments, of caring more for profit than for survival. The Skakwan tilts its head, its respirator hissing softly, and replies with a voice stripped of all humanity, cold and absolute, "Business is survival." The words cut through the chamber. Silence follows, but it is not peace. It is a silence of knives, of fangs bared but not yet striking. The others glance at one another, suspicion thick in the air, each one measuring who will lunge first, who will betray first, who will be left standing when the venom takes hold. You sit frozen in the middle of it all, your heart pounding, your stomach twisting. The speeches of freedom feel like a memory now, distant and faint. This is the truth of the council. Not unity, not revolution, hunger, fear. Dooku sits at the head of the table, silent, his face carved from stone. He watches them all, his eyes sharp, his expression unreadable. He does not calm them, he does not intervene. He lets them fight, lets them spit and snarl and bare their teeth. And as you watch him, you realize why. Because this is the design, this is the web. He does not need them to be united. He needs them to be divided, to claw at each other so they never claw at him. He needs them to mistake their greed for freedom, their paranoia for power. He needs them trapped, entangled, poisoned, so that when the time comes, they will not even realize who truly holds the leash. You lean back, your chest hollow, the whispers pressing against your mind. They are not allies. They are prisoners. So are you. The storm begins again, louder this time. Voices rising, fists slamming, datapads hurled across the table. Threats fly, some veiled, some naked. You see the banking clan's fingers twitch, as though already calculating new debts. You see the Trade Federation's eyes dart toward the doors, as though already planning an escape. You see the Techno Union's mechanical gaze flicker with data only they can read. And you see yourself, silent, trembling, caught in the middle of a viper's nest with no way out. The torches flicker, casting jagged light across the table, and for a heartbeat, eat. You imagine the shadows moving on their own, not leaders, not men, not machines, but serpents, their coils tightening around you, their fangs gleaming in the firelight. You blink, and the image is gone, but the feeling remains. The council is not a council, it is a pit, and you are falling deeper into it every day. Your hands grip the arms of your chair, your knuckles white, your breath shallow. You tell yourself to stand, to leave, to run, but you cannot. The doors are heavy, guarded, sealed by shadows you cannot touch. Even if you left, where would you go? Back to the factories? Back to the ashes of worlds burned by the Republic's wrath? Back to the whispers that follow you in every chamber, in every hall? There is no escape. There never was. The arguments reach a crescendo, the chamber shaking with the force of voices, with the pounding of fists, with the rattling of glass. You close your eyes, pressing your palms to your ears, but the sound still finds you. It is not noise. It is inside you. It is your heartbeat. It is your breath. It is the war itself, tearing you apart. And then, silence. You open your eyes. Dooku is standing now, tall and regal, his cloak falling around him like the wings of a predator. The chamber falls still, every voice dying, every fist lowering, every threat silenced. He does not speak. He only looks at them, at you, at the table. His eyes gleam, steel gray and cold, and in them you see the truth. He does not need to speak. He already owns the silence. The others bow their heads slightly, mutter their agreements, retreat into their seats. The storm dissolves into murmurs, into whispers, into silence heavy as stone. But you know the storm has not ended. It has only gone quiet. The fangs are still bared. The venom is still dripping, and when it strikes, it will strike without warning. You sit there, your chest heaving, your palms slick, your mind tangled. You look around the table at the faces of your so-called allies, and you realize you are not safe with them. You never were. You are not surrounded by comrades. You are surrounded by predators, and you are bleeding. The doors open slowly, the chamber releasing its prisoners into the corridors beyond. The leaders file out, their eyes still sharp, their whispers still carrying daggers. You rise with them, your legs trembling, your stomach hollow. You step into the hall, the torches flickering against your skin, the banners swaying overhead, and just as you breathe in the heavy silence, the whisper comes again. You will not survive them. You freeze, your heart hammering, your breath shallow. You glance over your shoulder, but the chamber is empty now. Just shadows, just silence, just the echo of your own fear-given voice by something vast and unseen. And as you step forward, the doors slamming shut behind you, you realize the Republic is not the only enemy you face. The true danger sits beside you at the table, and one day soon, one of them will strike first. The smiles come first, they always do. You see them across banquet tables lined with silver and glass, in council chambers where torches burn too bright, in corridors where shadows stretch too long. They smile when they greet you, when they clasp your hand, when they speak of unity and purpose. The smiles shine, wide and polished, but when their hands squeeze yours, you feel the knife hidden in the gesture. Every handshake is a blade pressed against your ribs, not yet driven in, but waiting, always waiting. You smell the perfume of wealth, cloying and sweet, drifting off the robes of the banking clan. Their words are soft, their tones refined, their fingers delicate as they slide data pads across the table toward others. Not you. You catch fragments of the contracts, the treaties scrawled in digital ink, their clauses buried beneath layers of legal jargon. You don't need to read them to know what they are. Deals made in shadows, credits exchanged like blood money, promises signed that carve you out as though you were never here at all. And they smile as they do it. Long, thin smiles that hide daggers. The Trade Federation offers toasts, their goblets lifted high, the wine rich and red, glistening in the firelight like fresh blood. They speak of loyalty, of cooperation, of standing shoulder to shoulder against the Republic. But their eyes flicker sideways, their hands slide contracts into waiting palms, their words drip with promises whispered too quietly for you to hear. You catch the tail end of conversations, whispers of tariffs lowered here, blockades lifted there, fleets redirected not for the Confederacy's good, but for their own. And when you lock eyes with them, they smile wider, their teeth sharp, their lips thin. The Techno Union hums faintly, their mechanical voices rasping with efficiency as they speak of production schedules, of shipments delivered on time, of guarantees made. Their words sound harmless, routine, like the ticking of a clock, but beneath their hum, you hear the static of betrayal. Their contracts, too, are whispered, their signatures hidden. They promise droids to others, fleets to others, credits to others. You are left with the scraps, and still they look at you with those unblinking lenses, their heads tilting slightly as if amused. And the hum goes on, steady, merciless, cold. You sit in the middle of it all, your chest tightening, your throat raw. You try to remind yourself of the cause, of the dream that once bound you all together. You try to remind yourself that this is a council, not a marketplace. But everywhere you look, you see transactions, not alliances. Every laugh hides a clause. Every nod hides a dagger. Every toast hides a betrayal. You can feel it pressing against you, bleeding you dry one smile at a time. You catch whispers in the corridors, voices carrying just far enough for you to hear. Leaders meeting in secret, not to plan the war, but to carve out pieces of it for themselves. They trade systems like gamblers passing cards, their voices hushed, their eyes gleaming. You press your back to the cold stone wall, your breath shallow, straining to hear, and every word cuts deeper. They speak of your people, your systems, your fleets, not as allies, but as commodities, as resources to be traded, debts to be sold, profits to be stripped. You stumble away, your heart hammering, bile rising in your throat. The betrayals are never shouted, they are never confessed. They come quietly, wrapped in silk, hidden in shadows. They come with smiles, with handshakes, with goblets raised high. They bleed you dry not with blades, but with signatures, with contracts, with whispers, and you realize how powerless you are. You can shout in the council chambers, slam your fists against the table, demand fairness, demand loyalty. But when the torches dim, when the doors close, when the ink dries, you are already cut out. You are already betrayed. You return to your quarters late one night. The corridors empty, the air heavy with silence. The window glows faintly with firelight from the city beyond, smoke curling against the stars. You lower yourself into a chair, your chest heavy, your hands trembling. You think of your people, the ones who cheered when you left, who believed you would fight for them, who trusted you to bring them freedom. You think of how they are spoken of now, not as lives, not as souls, but as numbers on a ledger. And the shame burns hot in your chest. The whispers come again. They were never yours. You grip the arms of your chair, your knuckles white, your breath ragged. The voice coils behind your ear like breath on your skin. You know it now. Sidious, always Sidious, the spider in the web, pulling every thread tighter. His laughter vibrates faintly in your bones, low and cruel, and you realize the truth. These betrayals are not accidents. They are not missteps. They are the design. Every treaty signed, every contract whispered, every alliance carved in shadows, it all feeds him. It all binds you tighter in his web. You stumble to the window, your forehead pressing against the cold glass. The city burns faintly in the distance, its lights blurred through smoke. You close your eyes, your chest tight, your breath shallow. You tell yourself you can endure it, that you can outlast the betrayals, that you can cling to the dream long enough to see it reborn. But when you open your eyes again, you see the reflection of your own face in the glass, pale, hollow, tired, and you know you are already being bled dry. The next council session feels different. You notice the way too. Hey, glance at you, quick, sharp, as if testing how much you still have left. Their smiles are wider, their laughter louder. They slap your shoulder. They toast your name. They call you ally, friend, comrade. But you feel it now, clearer than ever. The daggers pressing closer, the knives angling for your ribs. You smile back because you must. You laugh because you must. But every sound feels like a death rattle. The session ends. The others disperse. You linger, your body heavy, your throat dry. The torches flicker, casting shadows across the obsidian table, shadows that writhe and coil like serpents. You place your hands against the stone, your reflection staring back at you in fractured glimmers, and you whisper to yourself, though no one hears, this is not freedom, this is not unity, this is a feast, and I am the meat on the table. As you step out into the corridor, the doors slamming shut behind you, you hear it again, the whisper, sharp, merciless, final, and the feast has only just begun. Your breath catches, your chest tightens. You glance around, but the corridor is empty, silent, still. Only shadows stretch across the walls, long and jagged. You press forward, your legs trembling, your stomach hollow, and you realize, with a weight that crushes your lungs, that the greatest danger of all is not the Republic's cannons, not the Jedi's blades, but the smiles of the allies sitting at your side. Because every smile here is a betrayal, and one day soon, one of those knives will finally slip between your ribs. The whispers come before the sound. They always do. You hear them in the dim corridors of Raxus, carried in the hushed voices of guards who look over their shoulders before speaking. You hear them in the council chamber, muttered beneath the roar of arguments, never spoken too loudly, never claimed outright. You hear them in the streets, traded like secrets between merchants, between soldiers, between the desperate. His name slithers through the air like smoke, curling in your ears, seeping into your chest. General Grievous. You try to dismiss it at first. Just another weapon, you tell yourself. Another tool forged by the Confederacy, another piece of machinery built to terrify the Republic. But the whispers do not sound like they are describing a soldier. They sound like they are describing a monster, a creature birthed not from strategy or necessity, but from cruelty. A thing of bone and steel, wrapped in smoke, carrying the voices of the dead wherever he walks. The first time you see him, the air itself feels different. It happens in the council chamber. The arguments rage as always. Voices sharp, fists slamming, daggers hidden behind smiles. And then, without warning, the doors slam open. The sound echoes like a cannon shot, silencing the chamber instantly. Every head turns, every voice dies, and then you hear it, the cough. It rattles through the silence, wet and metallic, scraping across your skin. It is not a human sound. It is not even a natural sound. It is the sound of something broken, something that should not exist, clawing its way through lungs that no longer belong to flesh. And then he enters. Grievous does not walk so much as stalk. His body unfolds from the shadows, long and angular, his frame towering above every delegate in the room. His cloak sweeps behind him, stained by smoke, frayed by war. His eyes, yellow, burning, alive, pierce through the cham. bare with animal fury. The air smells of oil when he enters, sharp and acrid, as if his very presence poisons the room. The torches flicker, shadows stretching across the walls, and for a moment you imagine the chamber itself recoiling from him. The others avert their eyes. The banking clan lowers their heads, their fingers tightening around their datapads. The Trade Federation forces smiles, strained and thin, their eyes wide with something dangerously close to fear. Even the Techno Union's lenses flicker nervously, their voices stilled. And you freeze. Your breath catches, your throat locks, your chest tightens. Because looking at him, you do not see a soldier. You do not even see a man. You see a predator. Dooku introduces him calmly, his voice smooth, unshaken. He calls him the supreme commander of the droid armies, the Confederacy's greatest weapon, the one who will bring the Republic to its knees. His words are velvet, his tone steady, but when you glance at him, just for a second, you notice the faintest glimmer in his eyes. Not pride, not trust, something else, something colder. A flicker of recognition, of fear. Grievous does not bow, he does not greet, he does not even acknowledge the council as equals. He stands at the head of the chamber, his cloak draped across his frame, his taloned fingers curling and uncurling, the metal scraping faintly against stone. His cough rattles again, and when he finally speaks, his voice is deeper than thunder, distorted and broken, half machine, half monster. He does not speak of liberty, he does not speak of sovereignty, he speaks of war, of blood, of Jedi slain. The stories were true. You hear of his campaigns, each one told like a nightmare in the dark. Fleets ambushed, worlds razed, entire battalions of clones slaughtered. Jedi cut down, their sabers claimed, their bodies left as warnings. The whispers say he collects them, the sabers, the trophies, the proof of his victories. They say he carries them beneath his cloak, each one humming faintly, each one stolen from a guardian who once swore to protect the galaxy. You imagine the weight of them, rattling against one another like bones in a grave, and you realize you fear him more than the Jedi. The Jedi fight for something, for peace, for order, for the Republic. You may hate them, you may fear them, but you can understand them. Grievous fights for nothing, not even for you. He is not your protector, not your champion. He is a blade unleashed by someone else, sharpened for someone else's hand. His victories do not belong to the Confederacy. They belong to the one behind the curtain, to Sidious. You see it in the way Dooku looks at him. The Count may command him, may present him as the Confederacy's weapon, but the leash is invisible. The leash belongs to another. Grievous is not the Confederacy's, he is not Dooku's, he is Sidious's, and that makes him more terrifying than any Jedi, any clone, any Republic fleet. The council resumes, but the atmosphere is changed. Voices are quieter now, sharper, strained. No one dares shout over Grievous's presence. No one dares slam a fist against the table. Every word is chosen carefully, every gesture restrained. And through it all, Grievous stands at the head, silent but watching, his yellow eyes glowing beneath the shadows of his hood. You feel his gaze sweep across the chamber, and when it lands on you, your blood runs cold. It is not the gaze of an ally. It is the gaze of a predator wondering when to strike. Nights are worse now. You dream of him, of the sound of his cough rattling through the smoke, of the flash of 4 sabers igniting at once, of your body falling before you even feel the pain. You wake in sweat, the taste of metal in your mouth, your hands trembling. You tell yourself it's just fear, just nerves, just the war pressing into your end. But deep down, you know it is more. You know you are dreaming of him because the shadow of Sidious presses through him, reaching into your sleep, reminding you of your place in the web. The reports of his victories spread quickly. Systems whisper of Jedi cut down, their blood spilled in the dirt, their sabers stolen. Separatist leaders speak his name with reverence in public, but in private, you hear the tremor in their voices. They do not trust him. They do not admire him. They fear him, and yet they depend on him, because without him, the Jedi would break them. Without him, the Republic's wrath would consume them entirely. He is both their salvation and their doom. And you? You are trapped in the middle, chained between 2 terrors, the Jedi's blades behind you, Grievous's shadow before you, and Sidious's whispers everywhere. One night, as you leave the chamber, the torches flickering faintly in the corridor, you hear the cough behind you. The sound freezes you in place, your chest locking, your breath caught in your throat. You turn slowly, and there he is, shrouded in shadow, his eyes burning. He does not speak. He does not move. He only watches you. The silence stretches, suffocating, the air thick with oil and smoke, and then, without a word, he turns and vanishes into the darkness. You stand there for a long time, your heart pounding, your hands trembling, your throat dry, and you realize something that makes your blood turn cold. You are not afraid of dying by the Republic's hand. You are not afraid of falling to the Jedi. You are afraid of being forgotten beneath Grievous's cloak, just another corpse feeding his legend, just another trophy rattling in the graveyard he carries with him. Because Grievous does not fight for you. He does not fight for liberty. He fights only for the master behind the curtain. And one day soon, his blades will not just be Ned against the Jedi. They will be turned against you. The chamber is quiet when they call you in. Too quiet. No shouting, no fists slamming against obsidian, no threats rattling the torches from their sconces. Only silence, heavy and suffocating, like the pause between heartbeats before the blade falls. You step inside, your boots echoing against the polished stone, and at once you smell it. Wealth, not the scent of perfume or incense, but the sterile metallic tang of credits, of cold numbers carved into data pads, of wealth so vast it bends reality itself. The moons are already seated at the far side of the table, their elongated faces lit by the faint blue glow of projected figures. Their eyes are thin slits of gold, their fingers long and delicate, tapping calmly against the surface, as if already counting your worth. The banking clan. They smile as you enter, but their smiles are not human things. They are cold stretches of lips pulled too thin, too deliberate, too precise. Not welcome, not comfort, not warmth. They are ledgers wearing faces, accounts wearing skin. And as they beckon you closer, you feel the weight of their gaze settle on you, like a debt already owed. You take your seat, the chair colder than usual, the obsidian table before you, reflecting not your face, but the faint shimmer of numbers dancing across their data pads. One of them begins to speak, his voice smooth, calm, precise. He does not shout, he does not argue, he simply recites. Figures, losses, loans, interest rates climbing like vines wrapping around a corpse. He speaks of fleets destroyed, of factories bombed, of worlds consumed by the Republic's advance. He speaks of how the Confederacy cannot sustain this war without their assistance. He speaks as though you are not a leader, but a client, as though your cause is not a revolution but a business failing its investors. Your chest tightens, your throat dry. You try to interrupt, to remind him of why you are here, of the dream that binds you all together. But he continues, unshaken, unbothered, his words cutting through yours like glass slicing flesh. He tells you the Confederacy is indebted, that the banking clan's coffers are the only reason your armies still march, your fleets still sail, your factories still burn. He tells you this not with pride, but with inevitability, as though the war has already been reduced to a balance sheet, as though the deaths of millions are nothing more than debts entered into a ledger. And then he leans forward, his long fingers steepling, his eyes gleaming faintly in the torchlight. He tells you the price, higher interest, stricter terms, mortgages placed not just on factories, but on worlds, collateral pledged not in goods, but in lives. Entire populations signed away as guarantees, as figures in a system that does not see people, only numbers. The words slither into your ears like chains, tightening with every syllable. You feel the weight of them pressing against your chest, pressing against your throat, and you realize what they are saying. You are not free. You are owned. The others sit silently. The Trade Federation nods slightly, their smiles thin but knowing. The Techno Union hums softly, their vocoders flickering, as though this was always inevitable. Even Dooku, regal and composed at the head of the table, does not interrupt. He watches, calm and cold, his face carved from stone. And you realize this too is by design. The banking clan does not tighten its grip without approval. This is the web again. This is the hand pulling the threads, and you are caught in it, struggling, choking, powerless. You try again to speak, to remind them that this was supposed to be a movement of liberty, of sovereignty, that this was supposed to be a war fought for freedom. But when you raise your voice, the moon only tilts his head, his smile stretching slightly wider. He tells you freedom is expensive. He tells you sovereignty is not free. He tells you liberty has interest rates. And when he says it, you feel the laughter in the shadows, low and cruel, vibrating through the walls. Sidious. You close your eyes, your hands trembling against the table. You hear the words, sharper now, clearer now, curling into your chest like a knife. Chains are stronger when you do not see them. You open your eyes and look around the chamber. The others nod, they smile, they accept. They pretend this is strategy, not slavery. They pretend these chains are not chains at all, but tools, weapons, means to an end. And you realize they do not care. They do not care that your people are being bled dry, that your worlds are being mortgaged away. They care only that their fleets sail, their factories burn, their credits flow. You feel sick. When the meeting ends, you stumble into the corridors, the torches flickering faintly against the stone, the banners swaying overhead. Your breath comes shallow, ragged, as though the air itself has thickened. You lean against the wall, your hands pressed to the cold surface, and you wonder how you will tell your people, how you will explain that their freedom is already gone, traded away in silence, signed off with smiles. You wonder if they will even understand, or if they already know, if they already feel the weight of chains tightening around their necks. The corridors stretch long, endless, suffocating. Every step echoes too loud, too heavy. You hear whispers again, faint and cruel, echoing behind you. You turn, but no one is there. Only shadows, stretching long and jagged, their edges flickering like the teeth of predators. You keep walking, your heart pounding, your throat raw. The whispers follow. You were never free. You never will be. You reach your quarters, your body heavy, your mind tangled. You collapse into the chair by the window, your hands trembling, your chest heaving. Outside, the city burns faintly in the distance, its lights blurred through smoke. You stare at it, your reflection faint in the glass, and you realize you do not know if you are looking at a city or a prison. You do not know if you are looking at freedom or chains. And in your reflection, you see it clearly now. The eyes are hollow, the face is pale, the leader is gone. What remains is property. The knock at your door is soft, deliberate. You do not answer, but it opens anyway. One of the bankers steps inside, his robes pristine, his smile thin, his datapad glowing faintly in his hand. He speaks calmly, politely, as though this is routine, as though he is discussing weather, not chains. He tells you the terms again. He tells you of the debts, the collateral, the interest. He tells you there is no choice, because the war must go on, because survival must be purchased. He places the datapad before you, the contract glowing in the dim light. He smiles wider, and in his smile you see the blade press closer against your ribs. Your hand trembles as you reach for the stylus. You want to refuse, you want to stand, you want to tear the datapad apart and scream that you will not let them own you. But when you glance at the banker, at his golden eyes gleaming faintly in the torchlight, you know refusal is a dream. You know the chains are already locked. You know the contract is not a choice. It is a sentence. The stylus touches the pad. The signature burns across the screen, and you feel it in your chest, heavy and final. Another chain tightened, another piece of you sold. The banker thanks you politely, his smile never wavering. He collects the datapad, bows slightly, and leaves. The door closes softly behind him, the sound like a lock clicking shut. You sit there, staring at the empty space he left, your hands trembling, your chest hollow. You feel the chains pressing against your skin, invisible but unbreakable. And then the whisper comes again. You are not a leader. You are an asset. Your breath catches, your chest tight, your stomach hollow. You look out the window again, the city blurred through smoke, the lights flickering faintly, and you realize it is not your city. It never was. It belongs to them, to the bankers, to the web, to Sidious. And as the torches flicker, as the shadows stretch, as the silence presses against you like a noose, you know the truth. You are not free. You are owned. You never see him, not truly. No council chair bears his name, no banner carries his crest, no fleet sails under his flag, and yet he is everywhere. His presence drapes across every chamber, every deal, every whispered treaty signed in the dark. He is in the smoke of the factories, in the numbers the bankers recite, in the fire that burns through cities crushed beneath the Republic's wrath. He is in Dooku's voice, velvet and steel, every syllable guided by a hand no one admits exists. He is in Grievous's cough, in the hum of sabers stolen from Jedi corpses. He is in your silence. He is in your fear. Sidious. You don't even know if that is his true name. Perhaps it is only a mask, another shadow, another trick. But the name itself slithers when whispered, curling like smoke around your ears, sliding like oil into your chest. It is not a name meant to be spoken, it is a name meant to own. And already, it owns you. The council meets again, the obsidian table stretching like a wound beneath the flickering torches. The others argue, their voices sharp, their hands slamming against stone. They speak of fleets lost, of credits drained, of betrayals hidden behind smiles. But you barely hear them. You only hear the spaces between their words, the silence that presses down on the chamber whenever Dooku pauses, whenever Grievous coughs, whenever the banking clan tilts their heads in calculation. It is in that silence you feel him most. It is not absence. It is weight, heavy, suffocating, as though an unseen figure sits at the table with you, his hands resting on every throat, his smile unseen but undeniable. You try not to look for him. You try not to glance into the shadows stretching across the walls, not to imagine a shape sitting there, cloaked and waiting. But your eyes betray you. They flicker toward the darkness, and for a heartbeat you swear you see movement, a ripple, a silhouette, fingers curling around invisible strings. You blink, and the shadows are still. But the image lingers in your mind, carved deep into your bones. The arguments drag on, but none of them matter. You know this now. The banking clan can tighten their grip, the Trade Federation can smile their knives, the Techno Union can hum their quotas. It does not matter, because no decision here belongs to them. No decision belongs to you. Every vote cast, every treaty signed, every fleet launched, they all bend to the same hand, and the hand belongs to Sidious. When the council disperses, you remain behind. The torches flicker lower, the chamber empty but for your reflection fractured in the obsidian table. You lean forward, your breath shallow, your hands trembling against the cold stone. You whisper his name under your breath, so quiet it is barely sound, and still the air shifts, the shadows stretch, the silence deepens, and you feel it. He hears you. You stumble back from the table, your chest tight, your breath ragged. You tell yourself it is only your imagination, only your fear, only the weight of the war pressing into your mind. But the thought rots even as you form it, because deep down, you know, the shadows do not move unless he wills it. The silence does not press unless he commands it. Your fear is not your own, it is his. He has planted it in you, watered it, let it grow until you cannot tell where you end and he begins. Nights become unbearable. You wake in the dark, your skin slick with sweat, your ears ringing with whispers that fade the moment you try to catch them. You dream of webs, endless threads stretching across the galaxy, each one quivering with his touch. You dream of hands curling around your throat, of eyes watching from behind curtains of smoke. You dream of laughter, low and cruel, vibrating through your bones. You wake gasping, your throat at raw, your lungs burning, and the laughter lingers. The war continues, but you no longer see it as battles won or lost. You see it as threads tightening. Every Republic victory, every Separatist defeat, every fleet destroyed, every world abandoned, it all feels orchestrated, not random, not chaotic, planned. You see Sidious in it. You see his hand pressing both sides, bleeding them evenly, carefully, relentlessly. You hear reports of Jedi slain, of clones falling, of droids shattered. You hear of worlds turning red, of systems burned. And through it all, you hear the same whisper, always the same. This is my war, not yours. You walk the corridors of Raxus, the banners swaying overhead, the torches casting shadows long and jagged across the walls. You pass other leaders, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. They nod to you, they smile their thin smiles, but you see it now. They feel it too. They may not admit it, but they know. They know the war is not theirs. They know the council is not theirs. They know the leash is already locked around their throats. And like you, they are too afraid to speak it. One night you find yourself wandering the outer streets, away from the polished halls and marble towers. The city hums with life even here, but it is not the life of freedom. It is the life of survival. The smell of oil and smoke clings to the air. The cries of merchants hawking scraps echo down narrow alleys. You hear people mutter about the war, about the Republic, about the Jedi, but then you hear something else, another whisper, his name, not spoken loudly, never shouted, always muttered, always in fear, Sidious. The people don't know who he is, not really. They don't know his face, his rank, his role, but they feel him, just like you. His shadow reaches even here, to the streets, to the lowest corners of Raxus. You pause in the alley, your breath shallow, the stone wall cold against your hand. You whisper the name yourself, testing the sound, feeling it coil in your throat like poise. On, Sidious. The syllables taste bitter, sharp, wrong, and the moment the word leaves your lips, the alley falls silent. The wind stops, the torches flicker, the shadows stretch, and you feel it again, the weight, heavy, suffocating, crushing. You stumble back, your chest tightening, your knees trembling. The air tastes of smoke, of ash, of fear. You run, your footsteps echoing too loud, the shadows chasing you, the silence pressing closer. You don't stop until you are back in your chambers, the door sealed, your body trembling, and still, the silence lingers. You collapse into the chair, your head in your hands, your breath ragged. You wonder if you are losing your mind, if the war has broken you, if the whispers are only madness. But then the voice comes again, low and certain, curling through your chest. You cannot escape me. You freeze, your blood turning to ice, your hands trembling. You glance around the chamber, but there is no one. Only shadows, only silence, only him. You press your palms against your ears, but the voice is not in your ears. It is in your mind, in your bones, in your soul. You are owned. You rise, stumbling to the window, staring out at the city burning faintly in the distance. You tell yourself you still have a choice, that you can resist, that you can fight. But when you see your reflection in the glass, pale and hollow, eyes wide with fear, you know it is a lie. You are not a leader. You are not free. You are a shadow, just like him. And the only difference is that he knows it, and you do not. The torches flicker, the shadows stretch, the silence deepens, and then, just as you press your forehead against the cold glass, you hear the whisper one last time. You were mine before you even knew my name. Your breath catches, your chest heaves, your eyes close, and in that moment you realize the most terrifying enemy is not the Republic's flu. It's not the Jedi's blades, not even the betrayals of your council. It is the shadow of a man you have never seen, and the shadow has already swallowed you whole. The banners still fly, but they no longer inspire you. Their crimson folds sway above every council chamber, every command post, every smoldering battlefield. And yet when you look at them now, you no longer see symbols of freedom. You see cloth soaked with blood, waving high above ground that will soon be lost again. You hear commanders shouting of victories. You hear reports of systems liberated, but the words feel hollow, paper thin, drifting away on the smoke that clogs your lungs. Because you know what comes next. You know how this war works. Every victory here is only borrowed time. Every triumph is nothing but a pause before the inevitable collapse. The pattern is everywhere. A planet seized at the cost of fleets, of factories, of lives. A city held for a week, maybe two, before the Republic arrives with overwhelming force. The Jedi descend like shadows with sabers blazing, and the ground you bled for is lost in a single night. You remember one battle vividly, the siege of a world whose name you can no longer bring yourself to say. Your droid armies had overwhelmed its defenses, driven back the clones, forced the Republic to retreat. The banners of the Confederacy rose high over its spires. The people dragged into streets and told they were free. You stood on a balcony, the smoke still rising behind you, and you told yourself this was victory. This was proof. This was the dream becoming real. 3 weeks later, you watched it all burn. The Republic returned in force, fleets descending through clouds, cannon fire tearing through the sky. You saw Jedi at the forefront again, their blades glinting like lightning as they cut through your armies. You heard your commanders screaming through comms, their voices desperate, their signals fading into static. You stood once more on that same balcony, the air thick with smoke, the buildings collapsing one by one. And this too, you did not speak of freedom. You only prayed for survival. The banners that had risen so proudly were consumed by fire before your eyes. The memory lingers like ash on your tongue. You taste it every time another report arrives. World gained, world lost, fleets scattered, fleets rebuilt, only to be shattered again. The cycle repeats, relentless, merciless, endless. And you begin to ask yourself, was there ever meant to be a victory at all? The others still play their roles. The banking clan speaks of profits, reminding the council that every battle lost is an opportunity to loan more credits, to tighten more chains. The Trade Federation smiles and toasts, their goblets clinking, their contracts signed in shadows that carve away your strength piece by piece. The Techno Union hums of production, of factories working day and night, of droids rolling off assembly lines in numbers too vast to count. They all speak as if victory is inevitable, as if the war will bend to their greed. But their eyes betray them. You see the fear flicker there. You see the exhaustion, the paranoia. They know as you know. This war was not built for victory. And Dooku, Count Dooku, who once seemed carved from certainty itself, now stands colder, heavier, as though the burden of this endless struggle has seeped into his bones. His speeches remain silver, his voice velvet and steel, but even that velvet frays at the edges now. His pauses are longer, his eyes darker, his certainty thinner. He tells the Council that victory will come, that the Republic cannot endure, that the Jedi will break. But you hear the hollow ring in his voice. You hear the same doubt that gnaws at your chest. You wonder if even he knows, if even he has realized, that this war is not meant to be won. The soldiers know it too, not the droids. They march without question, without thought. But the organics, the ones who fight alongside you, the mercenaries and officers who fill the spaces machines cannot. You see it in their faces, the way their eyes darken with each campaign, the way their hands shake when they think no one is looking. They do not fight for liberty anymore. They fight for survival. They fight because debts chain them here, because contracts bind them here, because walking away means death. You walk among them sometimes, the air thick with oil and sweat, the smell of rations stale in the barracks. They glance up at you, hollow-eyed, and you wonder if they see a leader, or if they see another prisoner pretending to be free. The war rooms glow with maps of systems, each one flickering red and blue, lines shifting constantly as the Republic presses forward, as you push back, as the lines collapse again. You watch the holograms blur together until they mean nothing, until you can no longer tell which systems were won and which were lost. They all look the same now, temporary, fragile, ash waiting for fire. Generals argue over strategies. Commanders slam their fists against tables, voices rising until they blur into noise. And through it all, you stand there, silent, your mind whispering the same thought over and over. There is no victory. There never was. At night, the dreams return. Dreams of battles where victory and defeat blend into one another until you cannot tell the difference. Dreams where the banners of the Confederacy rise, only to burn before your eyes. Dreams where you fight beside droids who fall in endless rows, their bodies piling until they blot out the horizon. Dreams where you stand face to face with Jedi, their sabers glowing, their faces calm. Tuki. Your eyes filled not with hatred, but with pity. You wake drenched in sweat, your chest heaving, your throat raw from a scream you never remember releasing. And always, always, the whisper. Victory was never yours to claim. It coils behind your ear like breath, slides through your chest like cold steel. You know the voice. Sidious, the spider in the web. His shadow presses down heavier now, clearer now, almost visible in the corners of every chamber. You feel him in the silence between words, in the spaces between battles, in the despair that gnaws at your chest. He feeds on it. He has built this war not for victory, but for control, for chains, for ownership. You are not fighting to win. You are fighting to be drained. The realization crushes you. You stumble through corridors lined with banners, the torches flickering above, the shadows stretching long. You see the faces of other leaders, pale and hollow, their smiles thin, their eyes darting. They do not meet your gaze for long. Perhaps they too know. Perhaps they too hear the whispers. Perhaps they too feel the chains tightening, but none of you speak it aloud. To speak it would be to shatter the illusion. To admit the truth would be to admit you are not leaders at all. One evening, after another report of another world lost, you linger in the council chamber long after the others have left. The torches burn low, their smoke curling against the ceiling. The obsidian table reflects your face back at you in fractured glimmers, and you whisper to yourself the question that has burned in your chest for weeks. Was there ever meant to be a victory? The silence answers you, heavy, suffocating, final, and then the voice. No. Your breath catches, your heart hammering, your body freezing in place. The word vibrates through your bones, low and merciless. You glance around, but the chamber is empty. Only shadows stretch across the walls, jagged and long. Only silence presses against your chest. Only him, Sidious. You stagger back, your chair toppling, your knees trembling. You want to deny it, to scream, to tell yourself it is not true. But the word lingers, carved into your mind like fire burned into stone. No. You stumble into the corridor, your breath ragged, your vision blurred. The banners sway above you, their crimson folds casting shadows across your skin. You reach for the wall, your hands trembling, your throat raw, and you realize the war has already taken everything from you. Hope, belief, trust, even the promise of victory. All that remains is survival, and survival too is slipping away. The streets are quiet now, too quiet. You step into the night air of Raxus, and for the first time in weeks, no speeches thunder through the plazas, no counselors bicker behind closed doors, no transports thunder above the rooftops. Only silence stretches across the city, broken by the faint crackle of fire burning somewhere far beyond the skyline. The wind moves slowly, carrying with it the acrid sting of smoke, the taste of ash that clings to your lips, the faint metallic tang of war. You pull your cloak tighter around you, but it does not ward off the chill. The cold is not in the air, it is inside you. Your boots echo against stone as you walk the empty avenues. Statues loom above you, their marble faces carved in stern defiance, monuments to a confederacy that still dares to call itself free. They stare down at you with blank eyes, and for a moment, you wonder if they mock you. Their arms are raised as if leading a charge, yet the streets below them are deserted. The banners that once draped proudly from balconies now hang in tatters, edges scorched, cloth swaying in the faint breeze like the last breath of a dying man. In the distance, you see the glow of fires smoldering, faint orange bleeding into the night. You can almost hear the echoes of blaster fire that birthed them, the thunder of bombardments that shook the ground, the screams that filled these same streets not long ago. The war has touched even Raxus now, the jewel of the Separatists, the capital meant to stand apart from the flames. You smell it in the air, burned steel, scorched stone, the faint coppery trace of blood. The city breathes in smoke, and you breathe it with her. You wander past shuttered windows, doors barred tight, homes where once voices spilled into the night. Now only shadows linger. You imagine the people inside, faces pale, eyes wide, ears straining for the sound of engines overhead. You wonder if they still believe in you, in the council, in the cause, or if belief itself has burned away, leaving only fear. You try to remember what it was like when they looked at you with hope, when they raised their hands in salute, when they shouted for liberty. The memory feels distant now, fragile, like glass cracking in your grip. A gust of wind stirs the ashes along the street, swirling them into the air, and then you hear it, a whisper. You were never meant to win. You freeze, your breath caught in your throat, your heart hammering against your ribs. You glance around, but the street is empty. The shadows stretch long, the fires glow faint, the statues stare silently. You tell yourself it is only the wind, only your mind, only exhaustion dragging your thoughts into madness. But the words linger, carved into the night like scars in stone. You walk faster now, your boots striking harder against the pavement. The sound echoes through the hollow streets, too loud, too sharp. Every corner feels like a trap, every shadow like a predator waiting to pounce. You hear the whisper again, closer this time, curling behind your ear like breath on your skin. Never meant to win. You break into a run, your cloak billowing behind you, the firelight flickering in your vision. The city rushes past in fragments, arches cracked and crumbling, fountains dry and stained with ash, banners torn and scattered like corpses on the ground. The monuments blur, their marble faces warping in your mind until they no longer look like leaders. They look like judges. Judges condemning you for believing in freedom, for thinking you could escape the hand that has owned you from the beginning. You stumble into a plaza at last, the silence pressing heavier here. The firelight glows faintly against the edges, painting the statues in long, jagged shadows. You collapse against the fountain at its center, your breath ragged, your chest heaving. The stone is cold against your back, cold even through your cloak. You close your eyes, telling yourself to breathe, to be still, to find some fragment of calm. But the whisper does not let you. This was never your war. Your eyes snap open, your heart racing. You look around wildly, but the plaza is empty. The shadows stretch long and jagged, but no figure emerges from them. And still, the voice slides through your chest like a blade. You know it now. You know who it is. Sidious, always Sidious. The shadow behind the curtain, the hand pulling every thread. You press your palms against your ears, but it does nothing. The voice is not in the air. It is in you. You stagger to your feet, your knees trembling, your throat raw. You shout into the plaza, your voice echoing against stone, cracking with desperation. You demand he show himself, demand he face you, demand he stop hiding in shadows. But the silence that follows is heavier than before, suffocating, merciless. And then the laughter begins, low at first, almost inaudible, a vibration more than a sound, but it grows. It fills the plaza, reverberates off the statues, rattles in the fountain's basin. It coils in your chest, shakes in your bones, burns in your skull. You cover your ears, but it is already inside you. You fall to your knees, your scream torn from your throat, swallowed by the laughter that owns the night. And then, silence again. The fires burn faintly in the distance. The wind stirs the ashes. The statues watch with cold, blank eyes. You kneel in the plaza, your breath ragged, your body trembling, your heart hammering, and you realize something that crush. As what little hope you still carried. You are not fighting for victory. You are fighting because he wills it. You rise slowly, your legs unsteady, your hands shaking. You walk again through the silent streets, your reflection staring back at you in every shattered window, pale, hollow, eyes wide with fear. You do not look like a leader anymore. You look like a prisoner wandering the capital of a cause that was doomed from the beginning. As you near the council halls, the torches flicker against the obsidian steps, the banners hanging limp in the still night. You pause at the base, your eyes drawn to the shadows stretching across the facade. For a moment, you see it. A figure cloaked in black, standing tall, his hands raised as though tugging invisible strings. The image burns into your eyes, sears into your mind. You blink and the shadows are empty again. But you know he was there. You know he is always there. You climb the steps, your boots heavy, your breath shallow. The doors loom ahead, carved with the sigil of the Confederacy. But you no longer see the emblem. You see only chains, chains etched into stone, chains draped across your shoulders, chains dragging behind you with every step. You reach for the handle, your hand trembling, your chest tight. And just before you push it open, the whisper curls behind your ear one last time. Tomorrow, the chains will tighten. You freeze, your hand hovering, your breath caught. The doors tower before you, the shadows stretch long behind you. The fires burn faintly in the distance. And you know, the night of Raxus is not the end, it is the warning. The first disappearance comes quietly. No speeches are made, no announcements declared. One night a chair is filled, and by the next morning it sits empty, the banners behind it swaying in the torchlight as though mocking the absence. Whispers ripple through the council chambers, hushed and sharp, but no one dares to speak the truth aloud. They mutter of illness, of retreat, of exile. But you know better. You see the looks on their faces, the fear in their eyes, the way their voices tighten. You know the cost of speaking too loudly, of questioning too deeply. Those who do, vanish. You remember her well, one of the minor leaders, bold in her conviction, too bold. She had argued for hours during the last session, her fists slamming against the obsidian table, her voice cutting through the noise with accusations of betrayal. She demanded to know why the banking clan had bled her people dry, why the Trade Federation had redirected fleets without approval, why Dooku himself had allowed the war to twist into something unrecognizable. Her words had been fire, her eyes blazing with the fury you once carried yourself. And yet, when you looked around, you saw the others shrinking from her, their gazes darting, their smiles thin. No one joined her. No one dared. Now she is gone. Her world whispers of blockades, of bombardments, of ships that came from nowhere and left only rubble. Her people cry out for answers, but no one answers. Not here, not in these halls. The silence of the council is the loudest sound of all. You feel the chill of it settle into your bones as you sit in your chair, your eyes fixed on the empty seat across the table. The torches flicker, casting shadows across the stone, and for a moment the darkness looks like chains wrapping around her chair, dragging it into the void. You blink, and the image fades, but the weight of it does not. You begin to notice it. Everywhere, the subtle shifts, the sudden absences, leaders who spoke too passionately, who raised questions too sharp, who dared to press too far against the machine, they vanish. Sometimes quietly, sometimes violently, sometimes only their voices are silenced, erased from the council chambers as though they never existed. Sometimes their entire star systems burn, cities flattened, populations scattered. Each disappearance sends ripples of fear through the council, and with every ripple the others bow their heads lower, speak their words softer, sharpen their smiles thinner. Loyalty here is not rewarded. It is demanded. You realize this in the way the council looks at Dooku now, no longer with admiration, no longer with awe, but with calculation and terror. He speaks, and they nod. He commands, and they obey. Not because they believe, but because they know what happens to those who don't. You see the same fear in their eyes that coils in your chest, the knowledge that loyalty here is not a choice. It is survival. You walk the corridors after the meetings, the air heavy with whispers. You hear the murmurs of guards, of aides, of officials. They speak in fragments, never full sentences. Gone, destroyed, silenced. You hear them choke the words back, their eyes darting to the shadows, their voices falling to nothing. You want to ask questions, to demand truth, to know if the whispers are real, but the silence presses down on you, suffocating, warning. You know what happens to those who ask too much, and then, one night, you see it for yourself. You are summoned to the balcony of the council hall, the night air heavy with smoke, the horizon glowing faintly red. You step out into the cold, your cloak pulled tight, and you see it. Far away, on the edge of the sky, fire blooms. A planet burning, a system silenced. The glow lingers for hours, staining the stars crimson, as if the galaxy itself is bleeding. You stand there, your hands gripping the railing until your knuckles whiten, your throat tight, your chest hollow. You know what this is. It is not war, it is not strategy, it is punishment. A reminder to all who watch, loyalty is demanded, defiance is annihilation. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of ash even here, high above the city. You taste it on your tongue, bitter and sharp. You close your eyes, the glow burning still behind your eyelids, and you hear the whisper again. This is the price. You stumble back, your heart hammering, your breath ragged. You glance into the shadows of the balcony, but there is no one there. Only darkness stretching long, wrapping around the marble pillars like serpents. You know the voice. You know the hand that pulls these strings. Sidious. Always Sidious. The council may think Dooku commands these punishments, but you see the truth now. Dooku is only the blade, Sidious is the hand, and you are all the prey. The next day the council sits quieter. Voices are softer, eyes sharper. No one mentions the fire on the horizon. No one speaks of the vanished leader, of the burning system. The chair remains empty, a silent reminder of what happens when loyalty falters. And you sit there, your hands folded tightly, your words trapped in your throat, your chest heavy with the knowledge that you, too, are trapped. You cannot speak, you cannot resist, you cannot even breathe without wondering if it will be your last act before the chains drag you under. Nights become unbearable again. You dream of empty chairs, of fires burning across the sky, of entire systems reduced to ash. You wake gasping, your throat raw, your body trembling. You stumble to the window, staring out at the city of Raxus, its lights blurred through smoke. You tell yourself you are still safe here, that you are still alive, but the thought curdles as soon as it forms. Safety does not exist here. Only chains, only silence, only loyalty demanded at the edge of annihilation. You begin to notice how the others look at you now. Their eyes linger a second too long, their smiles sharpen, their voices soften when they address you. They know you have begun to question, even in silence. They can see it in your eyes, hear it in the hesitation of your voice, feel it in the weight of your silence. And you realize you are already marked. The viper's nest does not tolerate doubt. The web does not allow loose threads. You are already bleeding, and the predators smell it. The next council meeting stretches long into the night, the torches burning low, the shadows deepening. Dooku speaks calmly, his voice steady, commanding. The others nod, their words hollow, their obedience automatic, and you, your chest is tight, your throat dry, your hands trembling beneath the table where no one can see. You wonder if this is the night the shadows will close around you, if this is the night your chair will be left empty, if this is the night your world will burn. But the meeting ends, the council disperses, and you remain alive, for now. You step into the corridor, the doors closing heavily behind you, the silence pressing down like a weight. The torches flicker against the stone, casting jagged shadows across the walls. You walk slowly, each step heavy, each breath shallow, and then just as you reach the edge of the hall, the whisper curls behind your ear. Loyalty will not save you. You freeze, your blood turning to ice, your heart pounding. You glance around, but the hall is empty, silent, still. The shadows stretch long and jagged, but no figure emerges. Only the voice lingers, pressing into your chest, burning into your bones. You stumble forward, your hands trembling, your mind spiraling. You know the truth now. You can be as loyal as they demand. You can bow your head, you can bite your tongue, you can smile your thin smiles, but it will not save you. Nothing will. Bika. Use here in the Confederacy, loyalty is not protection. It is the knife held to your throat, and one day it will cut. The cough comes before the man, if you can still call him that. It rattles through the chamber like a storm clawing at stone, wet and metallic, scraping against your eardrums until the sound alone feels diseased. You freeze, your hand tightening around the edge of the obsidian table, and every other voice in the council dies at once. No arguments now, no threats, no whispers of betrayal, just silence. The kind of silence that suffocates, that presses down on the lungs, that feels less like peace and more like fear. Then he enters. The doors groan open, heavy as a tomb, and General Grievous stalks through them. His frame unfolds like a nightmare-given form, a towering skeleton of steel and bone, his cloak sweeping behind him like the shroud of the dead. The torches flicker in the draft of his arrival, and for a heartbeat the shadows seem to recoil from him, crawling back up the walls as if desperate to escape. His yellow eyes burn like dying suns, fixed on nothing and everything at once. And still, the cough rattles from deep inside his chest, a reminder that somewhere beneath all the steel, a fragment of flesh still suffers. The air shifts when he arrives. You taste oil on your tongue, bitter and acrid. You smell burned metal, scorched circuits, smoke clinging to fabric. You hear the faint whir of servos, the grind of gears shifting beneath the plates of his armor. He does not simply enter a room, he poisons it. He fills it with himself until you can think of nothing else. No one speaks. Not the banking clan who shuffle their data pads nervously, their long fingers trembling as they clutch their numbers. Not the Trade Federation whose forced smiles falter, eyes darting like prey cornered by a predator. Not even the Techno Union, whose mechanical voices always hum with certainty, now reduced to faint static. And certainly not you. You sit frozen, your breath shallow, your throat tight as Grievous's gaze sweeps across the council chamber. When it lands on you, your blood runs cold. He does not linger, does not pause, but still, the weight of it crushes you. Those yellow eyes burn not with curiosity, not with thought, but with hunger. The hunger of a predator deciding when to strike. You look away, your stomach twisting, your hands trembling against the table. Dooku rises at the head of the chamber, calm, composed, his cloak draped perfectly as always. He speaks of strategies, of campaigns, of victories carved from sacrifice. His voice is smooth, velvet over steel, but tonight it feels thinner, brittle, fragile against the silence Grievous commands. The general does not speak at first. He only stands there, his cloak pooling on the stone, his talons flexing faintly, scraping against the floor. And in that silence, every one of you feels it. He is not here to defend you. He is here to watch you, to remind you, to hold the leash tighter. When he finally speaks, his voice is thunder distorted, a roar, half machine, half monster, vibrating through your chest until you feel your ribs ache. He does not waste words on politics. He does not waste breath on pleasantries. He speaks only of war, of Jedi slain, of fleets destroyed. He lists them not with pride, not even with fury, but with certainty, as if their deaths were inevitable, as if his blades are less weapons and more natural disasters. He coughs again, the sound tearing through the chamber, and you realize no one will interrupt him. No one dares. You remember the whispers, that he carries trophies beneath his cloak, lightsabers taken from Jedi he has butchered, glowing trophies rattling together like bones in a grave. You imagine them now, hidden in the folds of fabric, each one humming faintly, each one a reminder that the galaxy's guardians fall just as easily as droids before his blades. You try not to think about how many he has claimed. You try not to wonder if one day your life too will be reduced to a trophy rattling in his collection. The council resumes its business, but the air has changed. Every word is quieter, every gesture restrained, every glance careful. No one dares raise their voice now. No one dares argue. The banking clan speaks of credits, but their words falter. The Trade Federation speaks of fleets, but their smiles are thin. The Techno Union hums of production, but their static flickers faintly. And through it all, Grievous looms in silence, his talons curling and uncurling, his cough rattling through the chamber like chains dragged across stone. You realize then what he truly is, not a commander, not a protector, not even a weapon of the Confederacy. He is a reminder, a shadow of Sidious given flesh and steel, a jailer draped in a cloak. You see it in the way the counselors avoid his gaze, in the way they stutter when he coughs, in the way the silence wraps tighter whenever he shifts. His presence is not meant to lead, it is meant to control. You tell yourself you still have freedom, that you still hold some measure of power, that you still make choices. But when you glance at him, when you see those burning eyes fixed on the council, you know better. You are not leaders here. You are prisoners sitting in a circle, each one watched, each one measured, each one reminded of the cost of disobedience. Grievous is the chain made flesh, and tonight the chain has tightened. The meeting drags on, your chest heavy, your throat dry. You barely hear the arguments, the strategies, the figures recited. Your eyes keep flicking toward him, toward the faint gleam of metal beneath the cloak, toward the talons that could crush your throat before you could scream. You hear the faintest hum from beneath his cloak, and you know it is not your imagination. Lightsabers. So many, too many, each one a promise of death. Your heart hammers, your palms slick, your breath shallow. When the session ends, the Ota. They scatter quickly, their robes whispering against stone as they flee into the corridors. You remain seated for a moment, your body heavy, your mind tangled. You rise slowly, your knees trembling, your throat tight. The torches flicker, the shadows stretch, and you realize you are the last to leave, except for him. The cough rattles again. You freeze, your heart pounding, your breath caught in your chest. You turn slowly, and there he is, still standing at the head of the chamber, his cloak draped, his eyes burning. He does not move. He does not speak. He only watches you. The silence stretches, suffocating, merciless. You want to run, to flee into the corridors to escape his gaze. But your legs refuse. You are caught, trapped, pinned by his eyes like prey caught in a predator's jaws. And then, slowly, he moves. His cloak shifts, his talons scraping against stone, the faint hum beneath the fabric growing louder. He takes one step toward you, then another. The sound of servos grinds against your ears, the cough rattles through your chest, the weight of him presses down on you like stone. He does not rush. He does not need to. He knows you cannot move. He knows you cannot escape. He stops before you, towering, his shadow swallowing yours. You look up, your breath shallow, your chest tight, your throat raw. His eyes burn into yours, yellow and merciless, and you know he could end you here with a single gesture. He leans forward slightly, his cloak rustling, and you hear the faint rattle of sabers within. Your blood turns to ice, your body trembling. He coughs again, the sound tearing through you, and then he straightens. He says nothing. He only turns, his cloak sweeping behind him, and stalks into the shadows of the corridor. The doors slam shut behind him, the sound echoing like a tomb ceiling. You collapse into your chair, your breath ragged, your body trembling, your chest hollow, and you realize the truth. He is not here to lead you. He is not here to save you. He is here to make sure you never forget who owns you, and one day soon, his blades will remind you in blood. It begins as a whisper, like everything in this war. Not a declaration, not a proclamation, not even a rumor spoken in confidence. Just a breath carried through the council chambers, through the dark corridors of Raxus, through the streets where fear clings to the walls like smoke. You hear it when aides trade nervous glances, when generals pause too long over maps, when bankers mutter in voices too low to trust. The whisper coils into your ear, sharp and certain. Dooku seeks more than victory. You feel it in his presence now, more than ever. He walks into chambers draped in silence, his cloak sweeping across the obsidian floor, his posture regal, unshakable. He still speaks of liberty, of sovereignty, of a confederacy standing tall against the Republic's tyranny. But his words are thinner now, the convictions stretched taut. The pauses longer, the steel in his eyes sharpened into something hungrier. He no longer feels like a leader binding a cause together. He feels like a predator circling prey, too distracted to notice. You sit in the council chamber as his voice fills the air, velvet wrapping around blades. He speaks of sacrifices, of battles that must be fought not for today, but for tomorrow. He speaks of endurance, of bending beneath the weight of the Republic only to rise stronger. The others nod, their voices murmuring agreement, their eyes hollow. But you notice what they don't. You notice the way his gaze drifts beyond the chamber, as if speaking to someone unseen. You notice how his hand brushes the edge of the table, fingers curling like a man gripping invisible strings. And you hear it, the second voice, buried beneath his own, curling through his words like smoke through fire. Sidious. The whispers grow sharper. They say Dooku trains in secret, wielding powers older than the Republic, powers whispered of only in half-forgotten legends. They say he communes with shadows, his chamber sealed with silence that even droids fear to breach. They say his loyalty has never been to the Separatists at all, but to something darker, something deeper, something that moves not in halls or fleets, but in the unseen corners of the galaxy. You tell yourself they are lies, that they are only the mutterings of frightened men, but then you remember the way his words sometimes feel too heavy, too sharp, too perfect. You remember the way you once heard a voice that was not his echoing beneath his speeches. You remember the whispers in the night that sound too much like his own, and you know the whispers are true. One evening, you pass the great hall where he trains. The doors are sealed, but the air beyond them hums with something unnatural. You pause, your hand against the cold stone, and you feel it vibrating through your bones. Not sound, not light, something else, something wrong. A chill crawls up your spine, your breath caught in your throat, and then, faintly, you hear it, the hiss of a saber igniting, followed by another, blades clashing, sparks searing the air. You hear his voice, sharp and commanding, and then silence, broken only by the sound of something heavy collapsing. You stumble back from the door, your heart hammering, your throat dry. You do not wait to see more. You do not want to know. The council sessions grow stranger. Dooku listens less now. He speaks more. His words are less about strategy and more about destiny, less about tactics and more about inevitability. He tells you the Republic cannot last, that its rot is too deep, that the Jedi are doomed to fall. He says it with such certainty that you feel the weight of prophecy in his voice, as though he has already seen it, as though it has already happened. The others nod, too afraid to question, too desperate to believe. But you hear something else in his tone, not Thaw's certainty of a leader, the hunger of a man who wants more than victory. You begin to ask yourself what that hunger truly seeks. Is it freedom? No. You know that lie now. Is it power? Yes, but not the power of armies, not the power of fleets, not the power of credits. Something deeper, something that bends minds, that corrodes souls, that whispers in shadows. You see it in the way his eyes glint faintly when the torches flicker. You see it in the way the others fall silent when his voice sharpens. You see it in the way he never denies the whispers of Sidious. He never confirms them either, but silence is an answer all its own. One night, you cannot sleep. The air in Raxus feels heavy. The torches dimmer than usual, the stars blurred by smoke. You wander the silent streets, the sound of your boots echoing against stone, and then you hear it, a voice. Not from the shadows, not from the air, from the sky itself. Dooku's voice, amplified through comms, carrying across the city. He speaks not to you, not to the council, not to the galaxy. He speaks to someone else. His words are not speeches now. They are pledges, promises, oaths. You cannot hear the other voice, but you feel it. The silence between his words, the weight pressing against your chest, the certainty that every vow he makes is to Sidious. You stop in the plaza, your breath shallow, your eyes lifted to the stars, and you wonder, has he ever spoken for you at all? Or has every word, every promise, every strategy been meant only for the shadow behind the curtain? The fires burn again at the edges of the city. Another world lost, another system abandoned. The others mutter about Republic fleets, about Jedi tactics, about credits wasted. But you hear Dooku's voice above it all, calm, commanding, certain. He does not look concerned. He does not look defeated. He looks resolved, as though every loss is part of his design, as though every defeat is a step towards something greater. You realize then that the war itself may not even matter to him, not the victories, not the losses, not the lives bled into the dirt. What matters is the power he is carving from it, the shadow he is binding himself to, the master he is serving, even as he pretends to lead. You sit in the council chamber one final time, the torches flickering low, the air thick with smoke. Dooku rises, his cloak sweeping behind him, his eyes sharp, his voice velvet and steel. He speaks of endurance, of destiny, of a future that belongs not to the Republic, not to the Jedi, not even to the Confederacy. He speaks of a galaxy remade, and though he never names him, you hear Sidious in every syllable. You feel the shadows stretch longer, darker, heavier. The others nod, their voices murmuring agreement, their eyes downcast. You nod too, because you must, because to resist is to vanish, because to question is to burn. But inside, your chest hollows, because you know the truth now. His loyalty has never been to you, never been to your people, never been to the Confederacy. His loyalty has always belonged to the darkness that commands him. As the chamber empties, you linger, your reflection fractured in the obsidian table. You whisper to yourself the question you no longer need answered. What is Dooku's final gambit? The silence presses against you, heavy, suffocating. And then, just as the torches flicker and die, the whisper comes. His gambit is your end. Your breath catches, your blood turning to ice. You stumble back from the table, your heart hammering, your mind spiraling. And in that moment, you know. Dooku's path does not lead to victory. It does not lead to freedom. It leads only deeper into the shadow of Sidious. And soon, that shadow will fall on you. You wake to the sound of alarms again, not the sharp blare of a single warning, but the endless wail of desperation that bleeds into every corridor, into every dream. The walls tremble faintly with the hum of distant cannon fire, and the acrid sting of smoke clings to the air even here, far from the battlefront. You pull yourself to the window, your breath shallow, and watch as another line of transports streaks across the sky, leaving trails of fire in their wake. They aren't carrying soldiers this time, they're carrying refugees. Whole families crammed into steel coffins, fleeing from systems that once swore they would never bow to the Republic. But they bow now. Every report confirms it. Systems falling one by one, worlds stripped away like leaves torn from a dying tree. Names you once shouted with pride are now spoken only in whispers, each syllable dripping with fear. Strongholds you thought unbreakable collapse within weeks. Fortresses fall in days. You cling to maps projected in blue light, your fingers tracing the lines of defense, but the lines shift too quickly. Red bleeds across them like spilled blood, consuming everything, pushing closer, pressing harder. You tell yourself there is still hope. You tell yourself you can still hold, but the maps don't lie. The walls are closing in. You remember the first system that fell, the shock that ran through the council chamber when the news came, the way voices rose in denial, in anger, in panic. You remember the excuses, poor strategy, unlucky timing, sabotage, anything but the truth that the Republic was stronger, the truth that the Jedi would not stop, the truth that no matter how many droids you built, no matter how many fleets you sent, they would always come. And they would always win. At first you tried to believe the lies. You told yourself the next battle would be different, the next fortress stronger, the next fleet larger. But the cycle never changed. A victory bought in blood one week, a crushing defeat the next. A city raised high with banners, then burned before its people could even memorize the sight. The Confederacy spread wide, but it held nothing. You feel it now in your bones, heavy and merciless. You are not building an empire. You are bleeding in circles, drawing maps in ash that vanish the moment the tide turns. And the tide is turning everywhere. You walk the halls of Raxus, the banners swaying faintly, the torches flickering low. The faces you pass are pale, hollow, sunken with exhaustion. Guards who once stood proud now lean on their rifles, their eyes darting nervously toward every shadow. Aides shuffle datapads with trembling hands, their voices cracking as they deliver casualty reports. Even the counselors, once so quick to argue, now sit in heavy silence, their smiles thinner, their words weaker, their fear palpable. You see it in all of them. The war has stripped away belief. All that remains is survival. The council sessions are shorter now. Fewer words, fewer arguments. The banking clan still counts its credits, but even their golden eyes flicker with unease. The Trade Federation still smiles, but their lips twitch, their hands tremble. The Techno Union still hums, but their vocoders rasp, their voices strained. And Dooku, still composed, still commanding, now speaks less of liberty and more of necessity. His words cut sharper, his tone colder, his patience thinner. He tells you the Republic presses harder than ever, that sacrifices must be made, that survival requires obedience. You nod, because you must, because nodding is all you can do. But inside, you know the truth. The walls are closing in and there is no escape. You hear it in the reports at night. Fleets crushed, armies scattered, planets surrendering before the battle even begins. The Jedi lead the charge, their sabers blazing like fire against the dark, their calm faces seared into your nightmares. You hear whispers of them everywhere: Kenobi, Windu, Skywalker, names spoken like storms, names that carry death wherever they arrive. You tell yourself they are only men, but you don't believe it anymore. They are executioners, and the galaxy has already been sentenced. The nights are worse. You dream of maps glowing in blue light, the lines of defense crumbling faster and faster, the red spreading like blood across every star. You dream of worlds burning, of banners torn down, of statues collapsing into dust. You dream of voices screaming, thousands at once, silenced in an instant by fire raining from the sky. You wake, gasping, sweat clinging to your skin, the taste of ash on your tongue. And always, always, you hear the whisper, "You were never meant to win." The voice curls inside your chest, cold and merciless. You know it now. Sidious. The shadow draped across every battlefield, every council chamber, every decision you thought you made yourself. He whispers louder now, clearer now, as if the walls themselves carry his voice. You press your hands against your ears, but it doesn't matter. The sound isn't outside, it's inside you. The Republic closes in tighter. You see it even here on Raxus. The skies are no longer free. Patrols grow heavier, defenses stricter, alarms louder. The Council pretends the capital is safe, but you see the fear in their eyes. They know it is only a matter of time. The Republic will come. The Jedi will descend, and when they do, no wall will hold them back. You walk the streets one last time, the air heavy with smoke, the fires burning faintly in the distance. Statues loom above you, their marble faces cracked, their eyes empty. The people move quickly, their heads down, their voices hushed. You hear fragments of conversations, families preparing to flee, merchants hiding their goods, soldiers whispering of battles already lost. No one speaks of liberty, no one speaks of freedom, only survival, only escape. You pause at the edge of the plaza, your breath shallow, your eyes drawn to the sky. The stars blur through the haze, dim and distant, and you wonder if any of them still belong to you, if they ever did. The whisper comes again, the walls will fall. Your chest tightens, your throat raw. You want to scream, to deny it, to fight it, but the words feel heavier than stone, sharper than steel. They are not prophecy, they are certainty. You turn back toward the council hall, your cloak dragging across the stone, your body heavy. The torches flicker against the walls, casting jagged shadows that stretch like chains across your skin. You climb the steps, your boots echoing too loud, each sound a drumbeat of inevitability. The doors loom ahead, carved with the sigil of the Confederacy. You stare at it for a long time, your reflection fractured in the polished stone. And then, just as you reach for the handle, the ground trembles. Faint at first, then harder. The torches sway, the banners rustle, dust falls from the ceiling. You hear it, distant, low, merciless, the sound of engines, the sound of fleets, the sound of war. The walls are not just closing in, they are already here. It begins not with fire, but with silence. A message arrives, velvet in its tone, polished in its promise. You are summoned, told the war is ending, told the Chancellor of the Confederacy requires your presence on Mustafar. You are told victory is near, that terms must be signed, that a new dawn is waiting. The words slide across your ears like silk, but deep down, something claws at you, for words that promise peace should not feel this heavy. The journey itself feels cursed. The stars burn too red, the space between them too dark. The shuttle hums as it cuts across the void, but the sound is hollow, a dirge echoing in your chest. When you arrive, the sight steals your breath. Mustafar, a world carved from rage itself. Rivers of molten fire cut across the surface like veins of a burning god. Mountains glow at their peaks as though crowned in embers, and smoke rises in pillars that blot out the stars. The air tastes of ash even inside the landing bay, bitter and sharp, clinging to the back of your throat. The heat presses through steel and stone, heavy and suffocating, as though the planet itself is alive, furious, hungry. You step into the corridors, narrow and dim, carved not for grandeur, but for secrecy. The walls sweat with condensation where the heat meets the cold of the machinery. The metal slick beneath your fingertips. The air hums with engines far below, each vibration rattling in your bones. You walk with the others, their robes brushing against stone, their faces pale in the glow of molten rivers spilling beyond the windows. No one speaks, no one dares. You hear only the shuffle of boots, the hiss of steam, the low groan of the planet itself. The chamber awaits you at the end of a long hall, its doors wide, its ceiling high, its walls glowing faintly with reflected firelight. Smoke drifts through the rafters, curling in the air like spirits trapped between worlds. The table gleams in the center, polished obsidian reflecting the flames beyond. One by one the counselors file inside, their voices hushed, their eyes darting. They mutter of negotiations, of peace, of the Republic bending at last. Their smiles are thin, strained, desperate. You feel it too, the need to believe. But belief here feels like poison. You take your seat, the stone cold against your palms, the obsidian table reflecting your face back at you in fractured light. You try to steady your breath, to still your trembling hands, but the heat presses heavier, the smoke thicker. The room feels less like a council chamber and more like a tomb. And then the doors close. The silence that follows is suffocating. You glance at the others, their faces pale, their eyes wide. Someone shifts nervously, their robe rustling against stone. Another clears their throat, the sound too loud, too sharp. And then you hear it, the hiss, the unmistakable sound of a lightsaber igniting. Your heart stops. The glow fills the chamber, crimson and merciless, painting the walls with blood-red light. Another hiss follows, then another, until the air hums with the deadly chorus of blades. You hear the intake of breath from your allies, sharp, panicked, final. And then the slaughter begins. The first scream tears through the chamber, high and raw, echoing off the stone until it feels like the planet itself is screaming with you. A flash of red arcs through the smoke and a body collapses, its robes smoldering, the stench of burning flesh flooding the air. Panic erupts, chairs topple, datapads scatter, voices shout in terror. But there is no escape. The doors are sealed, the walls suffocating, the shadows alive with death. You see them fall one by one. The banking clan's golden eyes widen in horror before a blade sears through his chest. The Trade Federation's thin smile collapses into a scream as he stumbles back, his hands clutching a wound that glows red. The Techno Union's vocoder crackles with static before his body crumples, metal sparking against stone. Each death is swift, merciless, inevitable. The chamber becomes a slaughterhouse, its floor slick with blood, its air thick with smoke and ash. You stumble back, your chest heaving, your throat raw, your mind spiraling. You hear blaster fire, desperate, useless, cut short by the hiss of sabers slicing through metal. You smell the stench of burning robes, of scorched flesh, of ozone from clashing energy. You taste ash on your tongue, bitter and choking. You press against the wall, your hands trembling, your eyes wide. The screams fill your ears louder, sharper, until they drown out your heartbeat. And then, through the smoke, you see him, not Grievous, not Dooku. Him, cloaked in black, his saber blazing red, his movements swift, brutal, unrelenting. He cuts through the counselors with precision, with fury, with something deeper than hate. His face is shadowed, but his eyes burn, a yellow fire that sears into your chest, a hunger that feels less human and more animal. You know his name, whispered in the dark, carried in fear, Skywalker, the Jedi who became something else. The weapon unleashed. He does not speak. He does not need to. His silence is louder than any threat. His blade is his voice, and it says only one thing: death. You press yourself tighter against the wall, your chest tight, your breath shallow. You watch as the last of your allies fall, their screams cut short, their bodies collapsing in smoke and blood. The chamber grows quieter, the only sound the hum of his saber, the rattle of your own breath. You lock eyes with him once, just once, and in that moment you understand. This is not war. This is not justice. This is execution. The blade hums closer, the red glow reflecting in your eyes. You want to scream, to beg, to run, but your voice dies in your throat. Your legs refuse to move. Your body refuses to obey. You are caught, pinned, swallowed by the shadow that has finally revealed its face. And then the whisper comes again, curling behind your ear even as the blade lifts. This was always your fate. The saber rises, the glow blinds you. The heat sears your skin, and in that final heartbeat before the strike, you realize the truth you have feared since the beginning. You were never meant to survive this war. The silence after your death is louder than the screams that came before it. It lingers in the chamber thick with smoke and blood, presses down on the molten air of Mustafar, coils through the galaxy like an invisible chain. One by one, the bodies of the Separatist Council fall quiet, their blood steaming against the firelit stone. And in that silence, something vast and terrible begins to move. Your death is not the end. It is the beginning. The Republic, the very enemy you bled to resist, proclaims victory. Senators stand in their marble halls and speak of peace restored, of unity achieved, of freedom defended. Their voices echo through vast chambers, polished and grand, banners draped high above them. But the words are hollow, and you know it even as the darkness closes around you, because this is not peace, this is not unity, this is not freedom, this is conquest, dressed in silk and thunder. The Chancellor stands before them, his face carved in lines of weariness, his voice heavy with sorrow. He speaks of betrayal, of the Jedi's treachery, of war forced upon them by shadows and lies. He tells them the Jedi tried to assassinate him, tried to seize control of the Republic, tried to destroy everything. His voice trembles just enough to sound human, just enough to sound true. And the Senate believes him. They always believed him. You hear their roar as he speaks the words that seal your fate, even beyond death. The Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. The chamber explodes in thunderous applause. Senators rise from their seats, their voices crashing together, their fists raised high. Some cheer out of belief, others out of fear. But it makes no difference. The sound is the same. It is the roar of chains being locked, of freedom being buried, of the galaxy itself falling into shadow. And you, though dead, feel it, the shadow pressing heavier, stretching further, swallowing everything you once fought for. You gave your life for liberty, or at least for the dream of it, and now your death fuels the very thing you swore to resist. The war was never yours. It was his, Sidious. You see him now, clearer than ever, stepping from the shadows not as a whisper, but as an emperor. Cloaked in black, his face scarred, his eyes burning yellow, he stands before the galaxy revealed at last. No longer a secret, no longer a hidden hand. He does not need to whisper anymore. He does not need to hide. He has won. His voice does not curl behind your ear now. It echoes across every star, carried in every broadcast, burned into every soul. His empire is not a dream. It is a reality, forged in blood, born from your ashes. The war you bled for, the war you thought was about freedom, was never meant to free anyone. It was meant to break you, to bleed you, to drain every last ounce of resistance from the galaxy. And it worked. You realize it in the silence of your death, in the shadow of his rise. You realize you were never a leader. You were never even a fighter. You were a piece on his board, a pawn sacrificed not for victory, but for inevitability. You remember the faces of those who fought beside you, the soldiers who believed, the officers who obeyed, the families who trusted. You see their eyes now, hollow and broken as they realize the truth too late. They did not die for liberty. They died for him. You hear their voices screaming in your memory, silenced by blaster fire, swallowed by firestorms, buried in rubble, and you feel the weight of it, crushing, suffocating, merciless. Their deaths, your death, all of it feeding the rise of an empire that was always waiting. The galaxy shifts overnight. Worlds that once flew your banners tear them down, not in defiance but in surrender. They replace them with the black crest of the empire, sharp and merciless, a symbol of chains worn proudly. Cities erupt in celebration, their people convinced the war is over, that peace has come, that their suffering was not in vain. They cheer as legions of stormtroopers march through their streets, their armor gleaming, their rifles ready. They cheer as star destroyers blot out their skies, their engines humming like thunder. They cheer because they believe they are free, but you know better. You feel it even now, in the silence beyond life, in the shadow that stretches further and further. This is not freedom. This is the death of freedom. This is not peace. This is the silence after the last scream. This is not unity. This is the galaxy shackled to one man's will, every chain forged from your blood. The Jedi fall with you, hunted, slaughtered, betrayed by the clones they once led. Their temples burn, their voices silenced, their sabers extinguished. Those who survive scatter into shadows, ghosts of an order that once stood between the galaxy and the darkness. You hear their screams too, echoing with yours, lost in the roar of a new age. An age where Sidious does not whisper. He commands. The galaxy kneels, and you kneel with it, even in death. You wonder if anyone will remember the truth, if anyone will speak your name, or the names of those who stood beside you. You wonder if the people you fought for will understand that you were never free, that you were never even fighting your own war. You wonder if they will see the chains for what they are, or if they will mistake them for safety. The thought burns in your chest, heavier than fire, sharper than blades. The fires of Mustafar still rage, rivers of molten stone cutting across the planet like scars that will never heal. Your ashes mingle with them now, scattered into the smoke, carried into the sky. You rise with it, into the stars, into the endless black, and from there you see it all. The fleets moving, the armies marching, the banners rising. You see the galaxy wrapped in darkness, every star a prisoner, every world a chain, and at the center of it, Sidious, smiling, always smiling. You gave everything to this war, your words, your people, your hope, your life. And now, standing at the edge of the void, you see the truth that was always there, whispered in shadows, hidden in smoke. The Republic is gone. The Confederacy is gone. The war is gone. There is only him, the Emperor, Sidious. And as the stars vanish one by one behind the veil of his empire, the whisper curls one last time through the silence, sharp and merciless. That's why it sucked to be a Separatist leader. You open your eyes to nothing, not darkness, not light, just absence. A silence so complete it feels heavier than sound, pressing into your chest, seeping into your bones. You reach for the stone of the council table, for the steel of your shuttle, for the molten air of Mustafar, but there is nothing. No walls, no flame, no body, only silence, and the faint echo of your own breath. Except you do not breathe anymore. Death is not what you imagined. It is not fire or pain or peace. It is memory, and memory is worse. You see the faces of those who stood beside you, one by one, flickering in the void like candles in a storm. Their voices rise, not in speeches or arguments, but in screams. The banking clan clutching his chest as crimson burned through him. The Trade Federation's thin smile collapsing into terror. The Techno Union's voice sparking into static before silence. Their blood mingles with yours, still steaming on the obsidian floor of Mustafar's chamber. Their bodies rot in fire and smoke. Their names are already erased, and you know yours will be too. History is not written by the fallen. History is written by the victor, and Sidious has won. The galaxy will not remember you as a leader. It will not remember you at all. The people you swore to free will never speak your name again. Already their voices cheer the Empire's rise, their fists raised in celebration, their chains mistaken for salvation. Already they replace your banners with his crest. Already they chant his titles. Already they kneel. You are not a martyr. You are not a hero. You are an absence, a shadow burned away by a flame you never saw until it consumed you. You drift through the void of memory, and the war replays itself again and again. The battles fought, the cities burned, the speeches thundered. You see yourself at Raxus, walking the polished halls, believing the promises of sovereignty. You see yourself at the council table, nodding at Dooku's silver tongue, mistaking his velvet words for conviction. You see yourself in factories choked with smoke, in war rooms glowing with maps that always bled red. And then you see yourself on Mustafar, pinned against stone, blinded by fire, silenced by a blade. Over and over the cycle repeats, each memory sharper, heavier, crueler, and every time, the same whisper curls through the silence. You were never a leader. You were a pawn. The words sting because they are true. You feel it in the weight of the chains you never saw until they snapped shut. Chains forged in credits by the banking clan, in contracts by the Trade Federation, in machinery by the Techno Union. Chains tightened by Dooku's hand, pulled by Sidious's will. You thought you stood for freedom, but you stood for nothing. You were never free. You were bought, bound, bled dry, and discarded. Your revolution was false. The void shifts, and you see the galaxy now as it is, fleets of star destroyers stretching across the stars, their shadows blotting out the light, legions of stormtroopers marching through cities, their boots striking like drums of conquest, senators rising to cheer the Emperor, their voices thunderous, their chains invisible, the Jedi scattered, hunted, their temples reduced to ash, and the people, your people, kneeling, cheering, believing they are safe even as their freedom dies. This is the legacy of your war, not liberty, not sovereignty, not even survival, only empire. The void burns hotter, and Mustafar rises around you again, its rivers of fire cutting across the black, its smoke choking the air. You smell the stench of burning flesh, hear the hiss of sabers, see the flashes of red. You hear the screams of your counselors, of yourself. The fire sears your skin again. The blade hums closer, the whisper curls sharper. That is your curse. Your chest tightens, your throat raw, though you no longer breathe. You try to scream, but the sound is swallowed by the void. You try to reach for freedom, but your hands clutch only smoke. You try to fight, but you have nothing left to fight with. You are only a memory now, and even that will soon be erased. Because Sidious does not just kill. He consumes, he rewrites, he turns revolutions into footnotes, leaders into shadows, heroes into traitors. Already, your story is gone. Already, your cause is forgotten. Already, your name is erased. The galaxy will not mourn you. The galaxy will not even remember you. That is the final cruelty. Not death, not defeat, erasure. You drift through the void, your body ash, your soul a whisper, your legacy a curse. You see the stars one last time, each one swallowed by the black crest of the Empire, each one chained, each one silenced. You wonder if any will ever break free. You wonder if any one will ever speak your name again. The thought burns, sharp and hollow. The fires of Mustafar flare brighter. The smoke thickens. The screams echo louder. You close your eyes, but the visions remain. You will never escape them. You will never escape him. You were his from the beginning, his until the end, his even in death. That is the truth. That is the curse. And as the void swallows you whole, as the fire burns away the last fragments of who you were, the whisper comes one final time, sharp and merciless, curling through the silence like a chain snapping shut. Ashes, that is all you are.